It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. All right, we're going to try to go ahead and get the show going. What I'm going to be asking tonight, as you see, the live stream is titled. It's titled "An Armed Populace." So, what we're going to be asking, as my TikTok feed also comes up, is we're going to be asking in regards to an armed populace. Would the crime rate in America be less? Do you believe crime in this country would be, let's just say, reduced or more controllable if every American was toting a firearm? And I'm asking this question because a lot of folks do believe that firearms, an armed populace, reduces crime. I have my opinions on it, but I wanted to get on here and talk to the folks, mainly because I was just in a live stream where someone suggested that all Americans should carry a firearm, and those who do not want to carry a firearm, talking about law-abiding citizens, those who do not want to carry a firearm should actually have them forced upon them. Now, I understand that sounds ridiculous, but I wanted to see what the folks thought. Looking in the comments, right off the bat, Jimmy Two Shoes says everyone should be required to be armed. I want to ask you folks, how many of you folks believe to get crime under control in this country, to get the amount of, just a simple amount of either mass casualty events or the thuggery you see at various mob robberies all across the country? How many of you folks believe that in effort to get crime under control in this country, the population should be forcibly armed? I'm talking about all law-abiding citizens, by law, required to carry a firearm. Do you believe that should happen? And if so, do you believe that would reduce crime? Looking in the comments, by the way, before I go to the comments, and I do see Slight 2112 says more guns, more crime. We're going to elaborate on that in a second. But as always, folks, I do appreciate you tuning in this evening. Main reason we're having the program is indeed because Robert Card, the mass shooter in Maine, has been found dead. So that basically the worst mass shooting in the state of Maine, took 18 lives, injured countless others. He has been found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But in regards to this stuff, I've heard folks suggesting that to squelch whether it's inner city crime like Chicago and places like that, or even these mass events, everyone should be armed. As always, I'd like to hear your comments. The program shall forever remain MAGA friendly. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. Appreciate you folks tapping the screen. Get your boy up to 1,000 likes to start it off. So looking in the comments, if everyone at a college football game was armed, what would that death toll be like? And that's user guy 1962 asking that question. And I actually believe that is a legitimate question. That in some cases, when you got a chaotic event, I'll give you a perfect example. 2017, the mass casualty event in Las Vegas, there was a outdoor concert taking place, and an assailant that was staying in the Mandalay Bay, the hotel across the street, the casino hotel across the street from Las Vegas Boulevard, had a huge cache of weaponry in his room that he had stockpiled. We're talking a host of Armalite rifles. Took the windows out of his hotel room, put the rifles on tripods, if I'm correct, bump stocks, and fired hundreds of rounds across the street into this crowd of concert goers. Now imagine in that situation, if every concert goer was armed, they all of a sudden realize bullets are raining down on the concert and everyone pulls out their firearm. How do you think that would have turned out? I just want to ask you folks that, because that's what we're talking about. To stop these events, everyone should be armed. Now, looking at the situation that just happened in Maine, the one you see on the screen right now. And I see someone in the comments said I was there. DeWolf, you were at the Mandalay Bay event? Wow. I wouldn't mind speaking to you. I'll go to the box shortly, by the way. But imagine in the situation that just took place. The assailant here that you see on the screen, Robert Card, went to a bowling alley and with an Armalite rifle shot up a bunch of people. Imagine if everyone in the bowling alley had a firearm. The problem, what I'm getting at, is target acquisition. You ever see folks go to the range and they have to pick which target to hit? They'll make a woman pop up and she's holding a baby. Then all of a sudden a criminal will pop up with a gun and you got to know when to shoot and when not to. That is training, folks that are involved in law enforcement, the military, they regularly go to training to perfect that skill. Law-abiding citizens do not. Most law-abiding Americans that are armed are simply carrying a firearm. They are highly untrained. The overwhelming majority of Americans carrying firearms are just carrying firearms. They're not going for regular training. So in one of these events where there's pure chaos, the skill greatly required is being able to separate good guys from bad guys. I would submit to you that most Americans do not have that skill. Most Americans cannot quickly separate a good guy from a bad guy during a chaotic scene, which obviously leads to a hell of a lot of, friendly fire, blue on blue, whatever you want to call it. I just really believe that needs to be taken into consideration. Josh on YouTube says, I don't think anybody should be forced, but I do encourage any law-abiding citizen to do so. I'm mostly liberal and have voted blue in the past, but I do believe in the Second Amendment. I think that's a fair response. I think I could tweak it a little bit, but I think that's a fair response. Nevertheless, we are asking that question, would an armed America equal less crime? Going to the box. We'll start it right off. I love the name. This should get to be interesting. Bushmaster 11B, the perfect guy to answer this question. Would an armed America equal less crime? Good evening, Bushmaster. What say you?
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Armed America, less crime.
Well, if I was thinking like a criminal and I was gonna harm somebody, I definitely wouldn't want them harmed. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're armed, it's not gonna increase my chances of being able to do whatever I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? If I was a criminal.
Well, let's put it this way. Armored car guards get robbed all the time. Police get shot at all the time. I would submit to you that if everyone was armed, remember we always say criminals, if you take away guns, they'll find another way. Well, how about the notion that if you give everybody guns, they can also find another way, which is, if I want to rob you, I just know I got to shoot you first.
Sure, but I won't say most, but a lot of criminals, they don't want to get in that situation because that's a bigger charge versus, like, if you rob a bank, it's like, what, 10,
Yeah.
20 years versus your life, or in some states, you
Yeah.
can lose your life with the death penalty. So, I mean, you got to think about that, too. They look at what they can get away with if they were to get caught.
Yeah, but just like you're saying, a lot of criminals don't want to get in gunfights. I would submit to you that a lot of citizens don't either. There are a lot of citizens that have been armed and afraid to pull out their guns. Shooting people requires a certain mindset, and I believe that a large amount of American citizens don't have what it takes to take a life.
I don't disagree with you because we actually had that. I've been deployed 3 times. We actually had that issue while I was deployed because the rules of engagement, the way they're set up, if they can't absolutely identify their target, then meaning like if the target is 500 meters away, they can't actually see the person. They can see the gunfire, like the muzzle flash.
Right.
They wouldn't. They would be scared to return fire. So
Yeah. And let me follow it up by asking you, this is something in the comments. Anna Marie Curtis makes a point of saying, he's saying that criminals are not stopped by consequences at all. Because you mentioned a lot of folks do not want to use a gun in the commission of a crime because it comes with more mandatory time in prison and things like that. And she's pointing out that you're using
I
logic.
understand what you're saying. Yeah, I'm saying not all criminals do that. Some criminals do that because they don't want that worse punishment if they were to get caught.
Yeah, I would have to. I would have to
Let
think.
me elaborate. Let me elaborate on what I mean by that.
Okay.
Like if you rob a bank and you get, I don't know, $50 billion from robbing this bank, you get 10 to 20 years in prison. I mean, and then your other option, if you're thinking like a criminal does, your other option is to borrow the money and work the rest of your life and never have it.
Yeah.
That's their process in how I'm imagining.
Here.
They want the money so they can have a quote unquote better life.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Well, I don't even know if they want a better life to some degree. Sometimes they just want a little bit of bling. In my opinion, I think that.
Yeah, that too.
In my opinion, I think that you're using logic on illogical people because if you weren't thinking logically, you wouldn't commit a felony to begin with. I mean, so I don't think, because that's another reason why I don't believe tougher sentences ever work. Because when a person is trying to commit a crime, they're not thinking about, well, what happens if I get caught? No, they're thinking about getting away with it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That if they were to get caught is the other thing. That's why I said if. If is it's a small word with a big meaning. That's a very big meaning.
Yeah. But but at the end of the day,
they didn't get this guy in Maine right off the bat. They searched for him for days before they found him. He passed away.
Yeah, and you're right. They found him of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that's why I've said before that. Yeah, when folks say everybody being armed is going to help these things out, in America currently, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can get a gun, you can own a gun in just about every state, every location, even in liberal areas. It may take you a couple extra weeks, but if you want to own a firearm, you can own one anywhere in America. And if you notice, very, very few mass shooters are stopped by armed citizens. Very few. Most of them are stopped by trained professionals or they commit suicide. Very few armed citizens, even though armed citizens are literally everywhere. Very few armed citizens ever stop these people.
I disagree because there was actually an event right close to my house, and it was a small town, but there was a guy that lost a civil lawsuit case. Essentially, he had to pay out a lot of money, and he lost, I think, some property and stuff in the civil lawsuit, and he went and started unaliving like judges and lawyers and stuff like that, and it was a law-abiding citizen who stopped him. And now, mind you, this was right beside the sheriff's department.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's the county courthouse. I mean, you got sheriffs and police all over there for court and everything else. And this law-abiding citizen carrying his own weapon, which at the time he had a CCW in Alabama. Now you don't have to have a CCW, but at the time he was a CCW holder. He had his own firearm and stocking gun. I mean, there was people that did get unalived.
Yeah, I didn't say it doesn't happen at all. I said most of the mass shooters that when they're stopped, it's stopped by law enforcement or they kill themselves.
Yeah, but a lot of these cases aren't shown like throughout the United States. Like that specific case right there, you never heard of it, but it was Hamilton, Alabama. If you want to look it up, you can do that. The guy ended up stopping him. It was just a regular guy. Just like me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there was a guy in Texas that stopped a guy in a church that was taking people out. But I still stand by the statement that the overwhelming majority of these people are not stopped by armed citizens. They're just not. And I'm talking about even the ones that go in Walmart and go in churches, places where you can carry a gun. They don't stop them there either.
Well, it happens all the time. When people invade people's homes, you don't hear about it all the time, but it happens a lot more than you realize. I mean, there's kids that have defended their own home with AR-15s and unalived the perpetrator.
Yeah, but that's not a mass.
Kids.
That's not a mass casualty event. In most cases, when a homeowner uses a firearm to defend his home, they're usually doing that against burglars. They're not usually doing that against armed assailants looking to get in a gunfight. It does happen, but the overwhelming majority of burglars that get shot was not coming to even get in a gunfight to begin with. They were coming to try to rob a house, hoping nobody was home, and ended up meeting their maker in the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we should have them. That's exactly why we should have them. Out in public, I think we should probably have them more because, I mean, at least it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. That's my.
Well, but here's I got to move it on. But before I do, here's the issue that when we're crediting good performances by good guys with a gun, what we don't talk about is bad performances like road rage and things like that people bring guns to, or Karens that decide to pull out a gun on somebody. Because and when I'm bringing these people up is because these are law-abiding gun owners that are doing bad things. They were not a criminal at all until the moment they illegally pulled out a gun on somebody. And so the reason I'm against it. Go ahead.
We have laws against that. It's illegal to pull a firearm on someone. Like in Alabama, you can't just pull a firearm on someone.
It's illegal to put. Yes, it's illegal to do it in all 50 states. But the problem I'm saying is if you hand the population, everybody in the population starts carrying guns, there's a lot of people with big egos that have no business having a firearm.
Oh, no doubt. There's people that don't know how to control their emotions. That's an emotional event. When they get all carried away, or whatever you want to call it, and then they react off emotions. They just react. They don't think about what they're doing. Excuse me. Does that make sense? They don't think about what they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes sense. In those cases, you're now adding a gun to an environment that may have resulted in a fist fight. And now all of a sudden, all of these type of people with big egos and out here to defend their honor, they're suddenly turning into murderers.
Well, if they pull one on me over road rage, they're gonna need it. That's why I say it's better to have it not need it not have it.
All right, Bushmaster. I love the name, by the way. Good talking to you again, by the way, too. Got to move it on, though. All right, Bushman. You too. Looking in the comments, as you see the title of the live stream, would an armed America equal less crime? You know, yours truly, I'll go back to the comments, but or to the box shortly, but my humble opinion is I do believe in an environment where you got a whole lot of disgruntled people. You know, obviously we got folks arguing over everything from, you know, the LGBT is making too many strides and pissing people off, to folks who are unhappy minimum wage has stayed the same too long. A lot of disgruntled people in our society. Folks on depression and anxiety medications, up to and including opioids and hard drugs. And a large portion of these people haven't been convicted of any crime yet. I just think it is very dangerous to throw a bunch of guns into a group of people that are like that. I just think that you're literally begging for problems. Going back to the box, let me hear where I'm wrong yet. I want to hear that. Let me go to the box. We'll go straight to Clayton Benefield. Would an armed population reduce crime? By the way, real quick too, in regards to whether an armed population will reduce crime, there's a lot of armed populations around the world. Are there any where crime is really low? Clayton, good evening. Hey, so what do you think?
Well, I think we ain't seen a lot of mass shootings at gun ranges, are we?
No, I don't think so.
When we don't have an easy target, it deters someone from picking a target.
Yeah. What about the police? The police get shot at all the time. The police have guns. They get shot at all the time.
That's right. But the police are going after the criminals. I'm not going after the criminal.
Okay, what about...
The criminal comes after me.
Okay, fair.
then we're gonna have a problem.
What about people like armored car guards? They get robbed and shot at quite often.
Large sums of cash.
Yeah.
That is occupational. That's an occupational hazard. If you're a skydiver, eventually the chute don't open.
I hope you're wrong. Well, the point I'm trying to make is that, yeah. But what happened to, okay, so you're saying carrying a firearm would deter criminals. What happened to the notion that if you take guns away, criminals will just find another way to do what they want to do if they don't have access to guns? Well, if you give everybody guns, and that's meant to deter criminals, what about the notion that they'll find another way?
The criminals are not going to give up their guns. You'll never, ever take the guns away from the criminals.
Okay.
It's like trying to take the drugs away from the criminals.
Right.
That's been happening forever, and we can't do that. So.
Yeah, but here's what I don't understand. You're saying you cannot take guns away from criminals because they're always going to do what a criminal does, and they'll find another way to kill or whatever. But you're saying if I arm you, criminals are going to be deterred to rob or hurt you, and they're not going to find another way. In my opinion, if criminals can always find another way, the moment you start carrying a firearm, they will still find another way to take you out.
A criminal is just like an opportunistic feeder. Wherever they see opportunity and weakness, they're bullies from the time they're get out of school until what time where they meet somebody that'll straighten them up.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with these criminals. That's the mindset they're in.
Yeah, but here's where I'm confused. Because the notion that you're promoting the notion that if everybody is armed, the criminals will think twice or would deter crime. In Chicago, where I'm from, a lot of the crime is drug dealer on drug dealer type crime, gangbanger on gangbanger type crime. And this is an environment where everybody's armed. If you're robbing a drug dealer, you know there's almost a 100% chance that guy has a gun. And it doesn't stop them from doing it. They just find another way, catch you by surprise. If you're an armed citizen, you're standing in line in Dunkin' Donuts to order something, and I want to rob you, and I see that shiny 357 on your hip, I know I got to either grab it or pop you in the back of the head first. I just find another way to do it.
That was a lucky guess, by the way.
Oh, really? So you carry openly?
No.
Okay, all right.
I carry concealed, and I carry 3 in my vehicle.
Okay. So if I break into your vehicle when you're not on it, I got to cash then.
No, you won't break into my vehicle.
You are around your vehicle 100% of the time.
No, my stuff is in a locked box welded into the floor pan of my vehicle.
Oh, damn. Okay, so I got to take the whole car, in other words.
Yeah, you got to take the car and find a good plasma cutter to get through the stainless box that's welded into the floor.
Shit, okay.
I'm a prepper.
Well, I will give you kudos for at least making sure your guns are actually locked up, because I've said this before, the notion that if you take away guns, a criminal can always get one on the street. No, they're getting them from law-abiding gun owners. That's where criminals are getting their weapons from. They're either finding, buying, or stealing them from law-abiding gun owners that do not have a lockbox in the floor of their car.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I got a keyless entry box on my car that's on my keychain. It stays with my keys with me, and I can push the button to open the box. It's one-off, handmade, built it myself.
Well, somebody, okay, fair enough. In the comments, 610 Big Stretch says, wants to know what type of car you have. Apparently, he's a repo tow truck driver.
Do I now?
One of the 610 Big Stretch in the comments, he's kind of wondering what type of car do you own, because he happens to be a repo tow truck driver.
Oh. I own 2. I own a Chevy High Country with a big lift and almost impossible to move. And then I own a 88 Jeep with a tremendous amount of conversions done to it, make it into an armored vehicle.
Why 3 firearms in one car, one vehicle?
One for me, one for my wife if she needs it, And usually I have one of my sons, 20. I got a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old, and if he needed to protect himself, I would put one in his hands.
But why not have the person carry the firearm on them between the house and the car? Why leave it in the car?
Well, there is one on me in the car.
So there's 4 or 5 weapons in the car at that point then.
There will be one on me in the car.
Oh my God. Sound like you prepared to drive down the Gaza Strip. The Israelis can use you.
Hey, look, if I'm surrounded by 75 protesters with sticks fixing to beat the windows out and kill my wife and kid, there's going to be 65 of them limping.
So you sound like you're preparing for the zombie apocalypse, basically.
Hey, man, if that's what we're going to go for, we got to go for it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's hope I don't see you on the news gunning down a bunch of protesters. I got to move it on, Clayton.
Remember, I'm going to be honest with you. I hope the largest thing I ever shoots a duck or a squirrel. But, I mean, it's a life we live. We're stuck in it. We can't get out of it. There's only one way out.
Clayton, we don't have to live. We don't have to live this life, man. We don't have to live this way. But
I would love for everybody to hug one another's neck and let's go on about their day.
Does it have to be by the neck? You know, as a black man, does it have to be by the neck?
Hey, man, I ain't gonna hug you around the waist.
All right. How about the body? I gotta go, Clayton.
Yeah, we're around the body, but man, I'd love to be that way.
Okay.
With everybody.
All right.
Some people just don't have that in them.
True. All right. Appreciate you coming on, man. All right. Good talk with Clayton. Look it in the comments. Bro want a pew pew a colored so bad. Big dog, yikes. I hope you are incorrect with that. Man, bro want a pew pew a color so bad. That is scary. I will do whatever to protect my kids. Cowboys 420. Here's where I have the issue. I understand the notion that if we arm everyone, folks believe that it'll reduce crime and it'll always be good guys winning or usually good guys winning. What we don't take into consideration that some folks turn into Superman, feel like they are a superhero when you arm them. I would submit to you folks like George Zimmerman, the guy who took out Trayvon Martin. Okay, it was rude in self-defense, but nevertheless, his actions are different than they would have been if he was not armed. Let's go with another self-defense case, Kyle Rittenhouse. He had to do it in self-defense. Do you think he would have been there if he didn't have that firearm? Do you think he would have even showed up? The point I'm making is that some folks do not have the mindset, the restraint that is necessary when carrying a firearm. Some people turn into FAFO type people simply because the gun makes them feel like Superman. Or in the hood, we always call it fuck around and find, or better yet, we call it I wish a motherfucker would. But fuck around and find out and I wish a motherfucker would are the same thing. And a lot of folks start acting in a manner that they would not act in if they didn't have the firearm. There's another case like that down in Georgia, another controversial racial case. Ahmad Diallo, or whatever his name was, the guy that was allegedly walking into a house under construction, and then he's later jogging down the roadway, and these 3 guys in a pickup truck or 2 guys in a pickup truck with one other guy chasing them. They all got guns and they jump out and they end up killing the guy. Without the firearm, chances are these people wouldn't be doing this stuff. It's that you feel like you got a better hold on the situation. Ahmaud Arbery. A lot of folks feel like they got, more power to do something, and they put themselves in dangerous situations that they otherwise would not have if they didn't have the firearm. We don't normally talk about that. But I would submit to you that if we arm our population, there would be a lot of that happening. Folks with inferiority complexes. Some folks would even suggest that some police officers may have been bullied as a child or, looked down upon, and they just simply became a police officer to take revenge or to act in that manner. Everybody doesn't have the proper mindset and restraint necessary to have dangerous firepower. So I'm real hesitant to back anyone stating that the entire populace should be armed. And just like John Suerte said in the comments, too many Rambos. I do believe that. Looking in the comments, we'll keep it moving. Pinche Vato Loco. This should be interesting. Let's see if we can have this conversation, Pinche Vato Loco, without a band. We're going to try to make this happen without a band. Let me see what's on your mind. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I got a question.
Sure.
How many crimes happen every day that are because of money?
Shit, most of them. That's what opportunists commit crimes for, is to try to get it to enrich themselves. Most of them are because of money. Huh?
Right. So why don't we get rid of money?
Because money is not the thing of that. I'm responding. If you get rid of money, I'm still okay. I want to steal money to go buy myself a gold chain or a pair of Air Jordans. I don't want the money. I want the Jordans. So I'm just going to take the money and go buy the Jordans with it. So if you get rid of money, then I'll just simply take whatever it is of value from you, go to where they're selling the Jordans and offer to trade them. Money ain't. Money is just the intermediary here.
No, I disagree. I think that people are going after the money when no matter what they're stealing from you, they're stealing it so they can sell it for the money.
Yeah, but they plan on doing something with the money. Nobody is trying to stockpile money. They got plans on how to spend the money. Right.
So that was their motivation, though, right? That was their motivation to make that happen?
Not always. Sometimes it's your car. Sometimes it's your chain or your watch. No, it ain't always money.
Every problem. When you think about it, if you really take the everything into consideration and you think about it, the real raw ingredients of every single problem in the world is money.
True. That is, it's the root of all evil, as they say. I don't disagree with that.
It is the number one problem in the world, right? So
Okay.
why don't we get rid of money?
The reason we don't get rid of money, Pinche, is what I just stated, because you're using the money as an avenue to purchase things you want. And like I just said, but let me say it this way. There was a time in mankind where physical money did not exist. People were still getting robbed because it was the barter system. I would just steal your car and go somewhere to somebody else who had something I wanted and offer to trade your car for it. Getting rid of money is not going to stop this.
So why is it that we feel like we should be able to say, well, let's get rid of the guns when the guns pale in comparison to what money does as far as criminals go?
Well, the reason that folks want to get rid of guns is simple. Guns kill. Money doesn't kill. You can't kill somebody with money. I can't, unless I guess I can shove a few $100 bills down your throat and suffocate you. But you don't kill people with money. You can kill them with guns.
Yeah, but Tim, at the same time, music is not. Instruments play music, right?
Yeah.
But is it the instrument that's going to play the music by itself?
No. Well, let me respond.
It takes an artist to put together to play the music, right?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Okay, what you're basically saying is guns don't kill people, people do. A gun will not shoot anybody by itself. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, that's like a cliche argument, but in a sense, yes. And I hate the fact that I have to say it that way because I think that it's the same argument everybody tries to use, but it's really a question that has no answer.
Well, but think about it this way. If you want to suggest that a gun will not jump up and kill somebody, it's an evil person that does it. If we want to use that argument to make sure guns are legal, I can use the same argument to make sure heroin is legal. Heroin doesn't kill people. People using it irresponsibly kills people. A bag of schmack will never jump off the table and inject itself in your veins. So if that's the case, then legalize drugs.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, and there you go. That's a good answer. Why? Because look at Amsterdam. Look at Amsterdam. They legalized every drug, and they don't have any drug problems. Why? Because everything's legal.
So you think that all hard drugs should be legal in America?
I think that honestly that there should be no reason why one man should be able to tell another man how he can or can't live his life unless it's affecting that man interpersonally.
So you're okay with same-sex marriage, transgender in schools, and all of that?
I think that if you are in a position where you got that stuff going on and that's something you're comfortable with, then you're in the right spot. If you're not, then you should move to another spot that they're not doing that stuff.
Okay. I don't know. I guess the way you put it, I guess, I mean, you're putting it pretty well. You're doing pretty damn good tonight. I'll say that. But I think the issue that you're posing with guns. So let me ask you this then, based on your notion that a gun isn't going to hurt anybody. I mean, what if a person could develop their own atomic weapon? It falls under the same It falls under the same statement. Are you okay with citizens owning their own atomic weapons?
Like I said, if he's hurting other citizens, then that's a problem. It's when one man's freedom affects my freedom that I have the right to speak. Until then, it's every man's choice to live the way he chooses to live. And no man has the right to tell another man. That's what makes freedom a beautiful thing.
So let me make sure I get clarity then. So if it's a law-abiding citizen that has no issues with mental illness or any trouble with the law, you would be okay with a law-abiding citizen having his own atomic weapon?
I wouldn't need to know that he has his own weapon, because he would be a law-abiding citizen who's keeping it to himself, and it's his private business.
But you wouldn't outlaw it.
I would what?
But you would not outlaw it.
I mean, like I said, unless it's affecting another citizen's freedom or right to freedom, yeah, you can't really get in the way of it.
Well,
you have to have that clear-cut understanding of freedom. If you don't, you end up in all this gray area that is a big problem in our country. Because if you think about it, if the laws were set up in a way where it's a can or can't type of law system, and not all this gray area in between that works out for the rich people all the time, then you would end up in a much better spot, because then the rich are kind of having their hands tied behind their backs in a lot of different situations that they gain from.
Well, I'm gonna go with what 610 Big Stretcher said in the comments. Sooner or later, he is going to use it. The problem is, if you allow people to have whatever they can, you would admit humans are flawed. Some people have anxiety and depression. Some people flip out. The human body is not perfect, especially the mind. If you have somebody flip out and they have a weapon of mass destruction, whether it's an AR or whether it's a nuclear bomb, one person can do a ton of damage. And in a country of 330 million people, you're guaranteed to have people occasionally flip out. That's why folks are not big fans of this stuff.
That's a mentality, though, that I think that you resort to, because of the fact that we have, as a society, have gotten so used to having police to call. And if you think about it, if we were required to defend ourselves, we would be a hell of a lot less worried about things like that, because we would be out to defend ourselves regularly. And it's because of the fact that we constantly want to rely on police, who only do one thing 100% of the time, and that's to show up after the fact.
So what do you suggest? You suggest that we get rid of police?
I'm totally against the police, bro. Totally against the police.
So let me put it to you this way. Let's say I'm an 80-year-old man, old and decrepit. Somebody break in my house and hurt me. I got to take them all on with a gun? There's no police to call. How do I get justice?
I would think that if that's happening, and I have neighbors, and that's not in some farm rural country or a rural town or somewhere where I got nobody around me, as a neighbor, I would say, okay, this man's freedom is about to be impeded upon, and I need to go out there and help this guy, because that's not right. But regardless if you call the cops, what are the cops gonna do? After the fact.
Do you realize you got Americans that don't even want to give their fellow American a minimum wage increase that they work for, or if they're standing on the corner asking for $1, they won't give them shit. But you think if they're getting robbed at gunpoint, the neighbor is going to jump into a gunfight because that's not right?
Again, that's the narrative that you're bringing up because of the fact of what we are as a society. As a society, we've gotten used to those things. We've gotten used to having those things at our resort. And, it's something that was never naturally supposed to be that way.
I'm going to present to you what Max Films and Things said in the comments. They would film you. They would film your demise. I can tell you right off the bat, if I was walking down the street and somebody held me up, put a gun in my head and said, "Give me your wallet," if there were some neighbors in the window and there was not a police to call, they would shut the curtains. They're not coming out there and taking on an armed assailant for my ass.
Again, you're missing the point, because that's just a Band-Aid then. What you're trying to do to stop the problem is just a Band-Aid. Because what did they go after them for? Money. That was the whole reason.
Yeah.
So if they're after them for money,
Why are we looking at the gun and not looking at the money?
What is it?
I'm telling you, the reason for every single problem in the world today is money.
Oh.
And if you think about it, the money that we have, it's fiat currency. It has no value as it is.
Well, give me yours then. Let me give you my address. Send me all of that useless money you got.
Well, dude, the Federal Reserve's going down soon anyway, so I mean, you might as well just forget about that. That's all coming soon.
You think okay, let me ask you. So if the Federal Reserve goes down, as you're saying, that's a pretty extreme example, but if
it's already been swapped out. It's already been done swapped out, and you can see that if you look at the debt clock.
So what happens in this nation if the Federal Reserve goes down?
Well, the Federal Reserve, for instance, when I say it's already gone down, it's already done. That's why you have to look at the debt clock. If you look at the debt clock, you'll see that our negative went to positive. But what happens is our money becomes, unvaluable whatsoever. It really changes everything for us because, as it is, our money is backed by a citizen. It's not backed by anything. It's debt. It's debt backed. And it's something that, it's up to us to control and up to us to decide on because of the fact that it's in our name. The debt is in our name as citizens.
Okay, in regards to our money no longer being backed by gold, let me ask you this. Are the other nations on Earth, is their money backed by gold?
If you're in the BRICS nations, yes.
Okay. Most nations on Earth are not part of BRICS.
Yes, you're right.
Is their money backed by gold?
No, most of the nations on Earth are not backed by BRICS. They're International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund derived from the Rothschild family, and all of that is all fiat currency. It's all printed as per their delight, and it's not backed by gold.
And they seem to be doing okay though.
You think so?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you tell it, but I don't think they're doing very well at all. They're bankrupt.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, everybody from nation Russia is not part of BRICS. I mean, the citizens in Russia do not live as comfortable as Americans, but they do have food, they do have shelter. I think they're surviving.
Russia is BRICS.
Russia?
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't know that. Okay. All right, I'll admit ignorance on that.
Isn't it the R in BRICS?
Say that again.
BRICS is Brazil, Russia.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, all right. I know what I was thinking. All right. How many nations are in BRICS?
I think it's 13 right now, or 12 or something like that. It's not very many, but Russia was, for the longest time, was the only country that had its own central bank.
That's Britain, Russia, India. What is it? Britain, Russia, India. What is the
South Africa and China.
What about all of Western Europe?
It's Brazil, Russia.
Yeah, but what about all of Western Europe? They're doing okay, aren't they?
No.
You don't think the people in Great Britain are doing fine?
No. Definitely not. The
But-
average person in Britain is suffering just as much as the average citizen in America.
So you think the people in Great Britain are doing worse than the people in BRICS?
Yes.
Okay, we totally disagree on that. All right, look, we're not going to agree on that at all. Russia, people in Great Britain are worse off than folks in Russia and Brazil? Have you seen the barrio in the favela in Brazil? There's no way I could agree with that.
It's everywhere they have their own set of corrupt leaders, and everywhere is suffering from the same type of corruption. So yeah.
I don't think you're going to go anywhere on earth and not find corrupt leadership. That's everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
All
And
right.
like I said, if you're going to keep on focusing on the symptoms of the situation and a problem, you're never going to end up fixing the problem. You got to go straight to the ingredients of the problem to fix it.
And you believe America's problem with crime is money. It's basically get rid of the money.
The world's problem, period, is money.
Wow. All right. I don't disagree if money is the root of all evil. I just don't agree with your solution. But I do got to move it on, Pinche.
How can you get rid of all the evil in the world if you have all the ruler of all evil in your back pocket at all times?
It's a complicated question, but I got to move it on, man.
All right, hey,
Mate, appreciate it. All right. I don't know, he was about to say something, but I had to move it on. All right. The issue now, I do agree with the last caller that money is the root of all evil. But here's the problem I have. There's a lot of countries on earth that have done exactly what we claim could never be done in America. We're talking about either outright banning of firearms or making it exceptionally difficult to legally obtain a firearm. And there are not a ton of people getting shot. Folks say, well, criminals always find another way. They're not doing it in these countries. Like, for instance, America has a mass shooting problem. That's almost uniquely American. Certainly when it comes to happening in schools and supermarkets and stuff like that. That's not happening in any other first world nation. So if you take away guns and say Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Norway, which they have done, according to many folks here in this country, the response should be that they would find another way to continue the mass shootings. That hasn't happened. There's not a huge instance of folks being ran over with cars at major events in Norway or Australia or New Zealand. They're not doing it. The claim that they'll find another way, it simply isn't happening. Or if you get rid of guns, criminals will just find a gun on the street. Most Australian, Norway, these countries I'm talking about, most of the crime in those countries are not gun related. Why aren't the criminals finding guns? That's what we say would happen here. If you get rid of guns, the criminal will find a gun on the street. That stuff is not happening in these places. So why is something so possible throughout the world, but all of a sudden it comes to the United States and it's impossible? I don't know if I buy that. And by the way, there's a parallel argument on this as well, which is you could never give everyone socialized healthcare in America. It's too many people. And it's the same question when you look at all these other nations. Well, how did they do it? How did these other nations give all of their citizens universal health care, but the richest nation on earth somehow can't afford to do it? I don't know if I buy these arguments that we can't do this stuff. I don't know that. Looking in the comments, why are you in your car doing work hours and in the studio doing non-work hours? Because I am working in my car during work hours. I generally drive for a living. I hope that answers your question. I'm at home when I'm off. I'm in my car when I'm at work during the day. Hope that helps answer that. Other nations have humanity. We lack humanity. Beverly, I will say in regards to guns, that does seem to be evident. I will tell you this right off the bat. Anytime there's a mass shooting or mass casualty event in the United States, we rush to defend the guns immediately. If you look at what has happened, and by the way, tap the screen. I know this is a late night live, but y'all can get your boy up to 20,000. There's still almost 250 of you in here. Smaller crowd, but I do appreciate you folks that are watching. Tap the screen. Helps out the algorithm. You know what I always say. Brings in more MAGA. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. But that's generally what has happened. Over the last 20, maybe almost 30 years or so. Columbine was what, late 90s? So it's been about 25 years since we've started really having a normal occurrence of mass casualty events. And during that time, what has happened? The ability to obtain firearms has gotten easier and easier. Even in liberal states now, you can get a gun everywhere. And in many states have now completely dropped any requirement other than being a law-abiding citizen to get a gun. No permits, nothing. You turned 18, go out and get a gun if you got the money. It's gotten easier and easier to get a firearm. The end result, crime has actually went up, which makes me question why, when you look at the monitor, what's behind yours truly, when folks suggest that an armed America would equal less crime, why isn't it happening? America is certainly more armed now than it was 20, 30 years ago. As I just stated, everyone can get a firearm. Hell, even minorities no longer face the restrictions they used to in regards to obtaining a firearm. It wasn't easy for minorities to get a firearm in the 60s. They wouldn't give Martin Luther King one. He thought his life was in danger. They refused to give him one. He would get one today. So if an armed populace would bring down crime, why is the opposite exactly what's happening? Everyone in America that wants a firearm can get one now. And the shootings are going up, not down. Looking in the comments, and I see Feisty says you'll never get our guns. Okay, but you can say that, but you can't say that the gun is bringing down crime. That's where the issue is. I gotta go to the name simply because of how it is stated. Some of these names just really invite me to click on them. Trigger Happy should be the perfect person to talk to on our subject. Good evening, Trigger Happy. Yikes. We're talking about arming the population. Trigger Happy, what say you?
I mean, as surprised as you may be, I am a European. Trigger Happy, it is borrowed from an American term.
Damn right it is.
It is, and I'm here, if anything, to support your views. As a European, I can tell you honestly, gun crime is unheard of.
What country? What country you're in Europe in?
20 years I live in UK. I was born in Eastern Europe in Lithuania. Never heard of gun crime.
Yeah.
Never seen anyone getting shot. Never heard a gunshot. I served in the military. That's the first time I touched a gun. And that was the last time. When I left the military, it was the last time I touched a gun, the last time I've seen a gun.
Was there ever a time in your life when citizens in your country could own a gun?
Yes, it is, but it's extremely difficult to get hold of one. Back in the day when we left, Lithuania was part of Soviet Union. I was born in the occupied Lithuania, part of Soviet Union. When Lithuania became independent, there was crime, there was gangs who were capable of obtaining guns. And there was a certain amount of gun violence. But within a few years, when our country established and brought the rule of law, that was all cleaned up. And gun violence is non-existent.
So let me ask you this, because in our country, folks believe that if you get rid of guns, criminals will just find another way to do it. In the comments, Mighty Might is saying, well, then let's talk about mass stabbings. Do you have mass casualty events where they use a car or some other weapon?
On another level, I mean, when we in Europe, when we talk mass, we're talking 3-4 people.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about mass shooting.
No, what I'm saying is this. In Europe, as you rightfully point out, it's very difficult to get a firearm. But in America, we believe if you take firearms away, the criminals will just find another way to kill everybody.
Statistics are working completely against it. Every developed nation, and we're talking about Western Europe, Europe in general, if you look at statistics, if you look per capita, let's say entire Europe is what, including UK, which is not part of EU right now.
Okay.
So you put it all that together, yes, what is it, 300 million people? Yes, and you include Canada, you include Japan, you include wherever you want, any other developed, westernized countries where guns are not easy to obtain. You combine all of them, you're going to have 400, 500 million people, which is more than America.
Right.
And you look at the crime statistics.
Yeah. It's not even close. I get what you're saying, but you're basically saying if you look at the whole of the free world and you remove America as one of the countries from the free world, the rest of the free world actually has more people than America, but America has far more crime than the rest of the free world.
We're talking 10 times more.
Yeah.
We're not talking like double. We're talking 10 times more gun violence. Even from law enforcement, because they operate on a completely different system. Because they have to understand, but somebody is very high probability they're gonna have a weapon on them.
So in your country, are there not people that want gun rights? How are they treated? I mean, obviously there has to be politicians that are saying if you vote for me, I'll give the citizens the right to own guns.
No, elections, countrywide elections, there is no such debate about guns.
Well,
I'm stopped by a policeman. Even when I'm stopped by a police, he doesn't have a gun. Our police officers don't carry gun.
well, yeah, I get that, but
So the chance of me being shot by
no, here's what I'm saying. That many believe that a gun is an equalizer. If you're trying to hurt an 80-year-old, a gun gives them a fighting chance. Like in the comments, Feisty is saying, "I don't care as long as I can protect myself. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks." There is no citizens in your country that believe they're weaker than the average human, so they need something to protect themselves. You don't have anybody that thinks like that.
no, we have a police force for that.
So the police always gets there in time to save you.
Not always. It's like everywhere. The chance is you don't have a gun. The criminal doesn't have an actual gun.
Right.
Firearm.
Yeah.
The high probability you're not gonna get shot. You might get hit in the face. You might be beaten. You might be robbed. But the chances of you getting shot are next to zero.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because when I lived in Australia, I got pulled over once in Australia and my mind instantly went back to the way police are here in America. So I did what you're supposed to do. You put your hands at 10 and 2 and froze. The officer asked me to step out of the car. And when I did, I continued to keep my hands in sight. I keep my hands kind of low, but in palms facing out. And the cop actually told me, quote unquote, "Put your hands down. You're not in America." I think just like you pointed out, the way our society is, it's known worldwide that we tend to have a pretty violent society.
It's not. You have to operate on a different system because you understand. It's not so much as violent. It's so much as like every person is potential gun carrier.
Yeah. But let me ask you one last question before I go, because this is something that a lot of gun owners are proud about. What about the notion that because all Americans are armed, we don't have to fear being invaded because we would put up such resistance because even the citizens got guns?
You know what I mean? In some way, they can make that argument, but because you have a military, which is the biggest,
Yeah.
the most advanced, the most equipped, and one of the largest, that argument falls apart. It's like if you called to your military to defend your country, will you be carrying your private gun? No, you won't. Your country will issue their weapon.
Yeah.
American military standard weapon. You will be given the training. You ain't gonna carry your own revolver, whatever other weapon you have in your possession. It's not a movie. It's not Die Hard. We're talking about, China against America or whatever. The chances are of that happening are next to zero to begin with. The reality is that the statistics tell you the truth. You are probably not 10, probably 100 times more times likely to get shot in America than in Europe.
Yeah.
And believe me, you can be stopped by police. You can be the most you're gonna get tasered. We're talking you can do some messed up stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen some videos about American policing. I've seen some statistics. How many civilians are being shot by a police force alone?
Yeah.
It is more just by your police force. It is more than entire Europe combined. 3 times more.
Yeah. Well, and oftentimes,
Actual gun violence in Europe.
yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm like I said, I'm really surprised though that more of your citizens don't want to have guns. Now, do you have any type of mass stabbings or anything like that at schools in your country?
Now, we have isolated incidents. Let's say I live in UK for the last 20 years, yes?
Yeah.
We're talking about most of the time gang violence, or we have terrorist incidents in UK. We had them before, but we're talking numbers which in United States would be considered everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
us, it's a shock.
Yeah.
You know, for us in Europe, in UK, you know, 4 people got stabbed. I mean, this is a big deal. That stuff doesn't happen. We're talking about once in a decade event. In America, it's what, monthly occurrence, mass shooting? We're talking.
Actually, it happens. I mean, we've had over 500 this year, so it's more than every month. It's more than every week.
So imagine this. You go there on Google, try to look at the mass stabbing, mass shooting, mass anything in European schools. When was the last time that happened?
Yep.
You know, I mean, we're talking Jesus, and because lobbying, that's a problem in your government. The government is so corrupt. I mean, our government is corrupt. You know, go there. Hey, I'm not here to defend our government. We live in a messed up system.
Yeah.
Thank God we haven't got weapons. But what's happening in America? The lobbying. You have a mass shooting. Your government is, if anything, you need more guns to defend yourself.
Yeah.
You already have guns. It didn't seem to help the situation. Hey, let's get more guns.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about giving the teachers in schools guns now.
Yeah. But I mean, is that? We're talking about developed country. We're talking about beacon of society.
It's bad, man. It's bad. You're depressing me. I agree with everything you're saying, but damn, are you depressing me? I gotta move it on, Trigger Happy though. Man, you just depressed the hell out of me.
No, you can do better, America.
Damn.
Do better.
I like that. I like that response. Appreciate you coming on, man. We can do better. I agree with him. We absolutely can do better. He pointed out something that we don't, I guess we talk about it sometimes, but not as much as we probably should. And the fact is, even in America, even the law enforcement are killing a lot of people. Now, that's not to say they're just going around and murdering people. But the fact is, because our society is so heavily armed, it does create a more antsy law enforcement. If you watch shows like Cops, Live PD, and some of those shows, you notice when they pull a car over and when they get out of their car and they're walking up to approach the car, they touch the back quarter panel, which leaves their fingerprints on the car if something happens, like if they lose their life. They approach the car from a tactical position off to the back. So they're talking to you when you're sitting in the driver's seat, kind of like over your left shoulder. Everything they're doing is based on a belief that this person may possibly shoot me. I can tell you after living overseas, that doesn't happen. When the police department, when law enforcement doesn't feel like they're outgunned by the citizens, it is a far more relaxed interaction with law enforcement. I can tell you that for a fact after having dealt with them in New Zealand and over in Australia. In America, the law enforcement, everybody they encounter might be just as much armed as they are. So they have a legitimate reason to be antsy. They probably get shot more in America than anywhere else in the free world. We have a lot of guns, and it leads to people's mindset. All of you folks in the audience right now, all you folks tuning in right now, and by the way, you should be tapping the screen and getting your boy up to 30,000 likes. But all of you folks that are watching, the ones who are pro Second Amendment defenders, you're carrying a gun because you expect the assailant to possibly have one. So the fact is, the more guns you pour into society, the more people that think they need guns to protect themselves. It's kind of like a vicious circle. Everybody it's kind of like an arms race, for instance. Almost the exact same thing as an arms race, like you've seen in the 1980s between the United States and Russia. I got a sub, well, now I need a submarine. I got a nuclear power one, now I need one. If you look at the firearms that citizens carry in this country back in the 50s and 60s, and you compare them to what they're carrying now, you can see a clear-cut example of the arms race. Look at what police used to carry as a sidearm in the 50s and 60s. Look at what is in their car now. They're carrying that because they know the citizens got more than a revolver or whatever. So you basically have an arms race going on. Look at what the criminals were using to commit crimes back in the 50s and 60s. Look at what they're using in the hood now. Extendos, long rifles, drums, all kinds of shit. It's an arms race. So the more the criminals get, the more the citizens want. There is somebody out there that is making a fortune off the arms race that doesn't want anybody to disarm because they're making money off all of this shit. You guys keep buying, and I'll keep promoting you to buy more and keep telling you your adversary has more than what you have, promoting you to buy more and more and more. But you can clearly see the arms race when you just look at what we as citizens are packing now, and when you look at what the criminals and the cops are packing now. Everybody's possession of firearms has become more and more powerful. Everyone. I mean, there were criminals. There's been criminals throughout history. Jesse James was a criminal back in the 1800s, going from town to town robbing banks. Did it with a revolver. Nobody pulls out a revolver anymore on anybody. There's robberies filmed on you see robberies filmed on YouTube all the time. How many times you see somebody walk in and pull a revolver out on somebody nowadays? It virtually doesn't even happen anymore. Looking in the comments real quick. May Boschik says, when's the last time you saw a gun ad? YouTube. I see a ton because I watch active self-protection. I watch a lot of gun content creators on YouTube. They're all over YouTube. There's plenty of them. And I occasionally look at some of the guns and ammo magazines and things like that. There's plenty of gun ads out there. They don't come on national, regular TV. But yeah, there's tons of gun ads out there. Our Texas southern border is wide open and I live around stash houses. I will keep my guns. Well, obviously, in a situation like that, I suppose I can kind of understand. I mean, listen, let me make it clear. Despite what I'm saying, and I'll go back to the box shortly, despite some of the left-wing opinions I'm giving, I don't support banning all guns. I do believe if you want to carry a little something to defend yourself, a little something, I'm not opposed to that. What I'm talking about is the arms race, where everybody is trying to outdo each other on the next level. That's where I start having a problem. I'm fine if you need a firearm to hunt, or if you want a little something to defend yourself. Where I disagree with is that third issue for why the Second Amendment exists, and that is to stave off tyranny. The problem with owning firearms to prevent tyranny is now you got to have firearms to compete with the government, because that's who you're hoping that you're not hoping, but you're expecting to have to defend yourself from. And if you need to have firearms to defend yourself from the government, now the sky's the limit in what you can own comes into play. This is when people are now starting to say you should be able to. I did a video the other day asking, should citizens be able to have an armed drone? And a hell of a lot of people said yes. Hell of a lot of people said that if a citizen wants an armed drone, they should have access to it. I just asked a guy on here a moment ago, if a responsible law-abiding citizen wants an atomic weapon, if he could get his hands on an atomic weapon, should he have access to it? And he said yes. That's the stuff that comes across as just outrageous. And there's a lot of folks that believe that. Looking in the comments, a tank is good for me in Texas. Yeah, oh, so real. That's the stuff I'm talking about right there. That because there was a guy, there's a real life criminal, I think you can probably still see it on YouTube, that stole a tank and was running from police in it. They had a hell of a time stopping that guy because we don't have a lot of equipment that's designed to deal with criminals running away in tanks. It gets to the point where you as a citizen can be so armed that if you decide to go rogue, the government may have a hard time stopping you. You got to put a limit on it somewhere. Going back to the box, Mr. Happy, good evening, brother. Appreciate you been holding on there. Mr. Happy, we're talking about if the entire population is armed, do you believe crime would drop? Mr. Happy, good evening.
Good evening. Now, before I get started, I am a believer in I am a believer in gun safety. So before we get started there.
No, everybody says they're a believer in gun safety, though. Give me your definition. What is gun safety to you?
The right, taking the right classes.
Should it be mandatory? Should those classes be mandatory as a condition to own a gun?
Yes.
Okay. So you believe that if a citizen cannot properly demonstrate that they know how to use a firearm, they shouldn't be able to have one?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. That's progress. Unfortunately, most Second Amendment folks don't agree with that, though.
It's kind of like the other day when I was on here that person was talking about the tank, you know, and believing he should have one to own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the guy's name though.
I remember the conversation.
Yeah, so my thought to that was, so by his logic, I should be able to drive a tank into a bank, get.
It's crazy. But let me ask you this though, as a supporter of the Second Amendment, then you do not support the phrase "shall not be infringed."
Again, it's the well-regulated.
Yeah, but if you're willing to support a legal requirement that a person gets training on a firearm they own, that is infringement. When they say "shall not be infringed," that means as long as you're law abiding, the minute you turn 18, you can get a gun, regardless if you know how to use it or not. In fact, in most states, you can own a gun even if you don't have eyes. You don't need to pass any test. You can have no arms and legs and still buy a gun.
Well, I argue that rule is for a well-regulated militia as well.
How could you be well regulated if you have no training? Is that the militia you want to join? A platoon of guys who ain't never shot the gun?
Not really.
Right.
That brings us back to the same thing I said earlier.
Yeah. When you hear think about the phrase "a well-regulated militia." If you're just handing out guns to everybody that's 18, where's the regulation in that at?
There's not.
Yeah, right. Right. That's an unregulated militia.
Basically, what I'm saying is, you can have your guns, just don't. There's gotta be a happy medium. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay, in regards to a happy medium, do you support any possibility of raising the age of maturity to own a firearm? Right now, 18 years of age, you can actually get an AR-15 in a lot of places, AK-47, SKS, whatever. Do you believe that the age in which you can own a firearm should be raised, or you think 18 is mature enough?
So you're old enough. So I'm gonna say this: if it's like you start drinking when you're
21.
Yeah. So then you should be able to get it's required once you turn 21, you can get a firearm as well.
Okay, so you would be in favor of raising the age. So 18, 19, and 20-year-olds no longer could have a firearm.
I'm in favor of it because to me, and I'm not knocking on anybody who's 18, 19, or 20
Right.
in the chat. I just want to say this.
Okay. All right. I got your disclaimer. We got your disclaimer. Go ahead.
Yeah. Your guys, their minds aren't developed enough yet, as far as I'm concerned. When you ask the question, could we meet in the middle? I think you're doing a damn good job at it. I think that
you're not just yelling shall not be infringed. You support the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, but I think what you're proposing are what we refer to on the left as common sense gun laws. What you're talking about, us on the left would see it's common sense. You know, certain age, having training. I think what you're talking about is common sense gun laws. What was that?
Pretty much. And like I said, and it isn't, as far as the criminal aspect, they've been doing that since cavemen been on the fucking earth, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, and I wanted to address a comment I saw somebody on, because the broadcast is also raise the adult. Should we raise the age of adulthood in general? Yes or no? I would say no. I mean, I don't know where that's coming from, but I think that guns are something that obviously gives a citizen lethal. I mean, in fact, because you can kill somebody with a car, you kill somebody with a knife. The difference is, though, the only purpose of a gun is to kill. Guns have no other purpose. When used as intended, the end result with a gun is killing something. That's the only purpose of it. So, yeah, I do agree with you that you should have more maturity and be able to demonstrate proficiency with a firearm before you can own one. I think when you say meet in the middle, I think we're meeting in the middle.
Yeah. And as the conversations that we've had, I've always told you I'm not left or right. I'm just straight in the middle.
Yeah. Well, the statements you're giving makes it clear you're not far right at all. You do sound fairly moderate, based on what you're saying. Wow. There you go, Happy. There you go. Wow. I'm jealous as fuck. I ain't got one of those. That was good. That was good. Wow.
Thanks whoever did that. So, by the way, here's my thought. So here's my question to the chat. If someone in the middle could be extremely reasonable with the left, why can't you're beloved MAGA be more reasonable when it comes to guns?
I think that you're talking about from the left or from the right?
I'm talking about when I say MAGA, I mean right. So,
Okay, yeah. Well, you're not going to get any reasonableness from MAGA because they're too busy. You see here over my left shoulder the Gadsden flag or the shall not be infringed upon snake. They're talking more shall not be infringed upon. The reason MAGA is not going to be they're not going to be reasonable because they believe that any type of gun law, no matter how minor, is a stepping stone towards taking away all guns. So even something like bump stocks, which President Trump actually did ban bump stocks, but even that he faced resistance for because they don't believe in any kind of gun law. So that's why they're not reasonable because it's in their very charter to not be reasonable with anything, any kind of infringement at all is a stepping stone towards taking away all guns. So they resist everything.
So then by their logic, I could take a tank, drive it in a crowd, and nothing should happen.
No, but they don't say nothing should happen, but they do believe you should have the right to own that tank. No, if you break the law, they want you prosecuted or taken out. They're not for breaking the law necessarily, but they do believe if you were a criminal in before you was a law-abiding citizen, you should have access to the tank. I ask these wild questions all the time. I've had MAGA, I've had pro Second Amendment folks come on the chat and say you should have access to anthrax and ricin, all of that stuff. It's because those are armaments that the government has access to. So to prevent tyranny, they got biological weapons, I should have them. I've had plenty of folks come on here and say that.
That's just...
It's crazy.
Yeah, Crazy.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Happy, then you definitely should be happy. Somebody hooked you up. So come on back anytime, though, man.
All right.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm jealous as hell of Mr. Happy. I ain't never seen that, whatever he got. Looking in the comments, Mr. Happy always good talking to him, by the way. And if he was MAGA or more Republican, hell, I damn near want to give him the same thing because the type of stuff he was being in favor of, you don't hear that coming from the right at all. Certainly something suggesting that you should be able to demonstrate proficiency on the weapons you own. You're not going to have many folks on the right agree with that at all. You just not. And to me, that's about as much of a common sense approach that is possible. I mean, something simple as simply being able to show that you know how to use the gun you own. They're against that. I mean, look how many folks you see, certainly in the hood, turning the gun to the side and shit like that. Nobody trained on a firearm would do that. No, because the gun ain't designed to shoot from the side. So, yeah, I strongly believe if you own a firearm, you should be required to show you know how to use the firearm. Not only would that make everybody safer, but it also would make you make less mistakes, better purchases, for instance. Some people want the biggest and brightest gun, but they may be in a situation that's the wrong firearm for. I mean, if you live in a Manhattan apartment, why would you buy a 50 cal? Maybe you need to know that. I don't know. I do believe you should be trained on what you're purchasing, but a whole lot of folks disagree. As I always talk about, very unusual names stand out in the chat, stand out in the comments. I appreciate you folks that are tapping the screen. Get your boy to 35,000. BLM for Tel Aviv. I guess that's better than Hamas, huh? All right, good evening, BLM for Tel Aviv. Going against the right-wing narrative that BLM is actually for Hamas. Good evening, BLM.
How's it going?
It's going. You don't sound like BLM. Good evening.
No, yeah, it's kind of just like a joke name.
Okay. All right.
So we want to bring the BLM movement to Tel Aviv because it's like they're funding all the BLM stuff here. Why don't we, try to get the movement going over there in Tel Aviv?
I don't know. BLM really isn't designed to deal with international issues. I mean, you got a few idiots that got up and stood up in favor of Hamas and things like that. But because folks always try to hold BLM accountable for not addressing issues that they never were designed to do so. Like, why you don't care when this happened or that happened. BLM has always been about controversial assassinations or beatings or whatever, or injustices facing mostly black people. That's always been what they're about. Well, why don't you care about black on black killings? That never was their mission statement. It wasn't about that. So I don't know, but go ahead.
So more so, like the joke is like all these Israeli lobbyists, all these guys, they're pushing for all this equity, diversity, inclusion all across the Western world in America. But when it comes to Israel, when the African migrants come there, they'll actually pay them $4,000 to leave to go to immigrate to Europe. They say, we don't want you here.
Damn. Damn.
Yeah, they pay them. Actually, I think it's $3,500 per person.
So you're saying that if an African immigrant wants to move to Israel, the Jewish will actually pay them to go away?
Well, first off, they wouldn't end up being allowed to. It's not like an option for them. But the ones that did end up there in the recent history, I forget what led them to be there. But if they do end up there, they don't allow that. They freak out. And in a lot of cases, they pay them to leave. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's kind of my joke. I say we need to,
All
if they're doing all the equity inclusion stuff over here and across Europe, why not bring it to Israel?
Well,
Diversity is your strength. And diversity makes things so much better, so much stronger, and it's great for everyone.
Well, I will say this. Despite the atrocities of Hamas, if there is one victory that Hamas has actually scored, is that it has now drawn a big light onto Israel. So once Hamas is eradicated or whatever they do with Hamas, Israel is going to have some reckoning. They're going to have to answer to some of the stuff that the Palestinians are complaining about, because it does appear as if a large portion of the world now do believe Israel is kind of complacent in why they got attacked. So Hamas has actually scored a victory from that standpoint, that they no longer will be able to sweep under the rug a lot of things they were doing, because now people are focusing on them.
Yeah, a lot of people are questioning why a lot of these Zionists control the media, why they were the architects of the Iraq War, why they were pushing a lot of this pharmaceutical stuff with COVID, and now it seems that they own BlackRock, they own all the banks, and people are like scratching their heads and they go, what the hell is going on with this? Why is this tiny country in the Middle East that was just created in 48? Why is this such a fulcrum point for the entire world? What's going on there?
Yeah, you even got you even
why
have
is all these politicians so loyal to this country?
they getting paid. They getting paid. But yeah, you even got Biden now promoting a two-state solution. So I think at the end of this, the Palestinians may actually walk away with more land in a better situation than they did going into this, because Israel's going to be, like I said, the eyes of the free world is now looking on Israel. They're going to have to probably make amends with Palestine. Go ahead.
There's not a chance. I'd like to see it, but there is not a chance in hell that you see all these Western politicians. You can't even say like, oh, we're sorry, Palestinians, for trying to ethnically cleanse you. Like, the pretty much best you could be in the Western political realm.
I don't. Here's the problem. Here's the reason why I say it's going to happen. If Israel does not treat the Palestinians better, I think the world outcry is going to be much stronger than it was before October 7th. I think that like I said, even Biden is now talking about a two-state solution. I don't think that little tiny strip of land with 2 million people living in squalor. Otherwise, if Israel does not do anything about it, does not change their ways, October 7th will happen again. It might be 5-10 years from now, but it will happen again. These people don't like living like that.
Oh yeah, this has really raised the tensions for a lot of these groups, because a lot of these Arab nations, when it comes down to it, the leaders, they've been subdued through diplomacy. Like Saudi Arabia, they don't want to get involved with this. Egypt, they're in the same position as a lot of our Western leaders. They're getting paid off. They're living life. The Saudis have billions and billions of dollars for all these oil deals they're trying to normalize ties.
Yeah.
But the thing is, these Arab populations, they're not like here. They're not just going to go, wear their little pink hats and put the signs in the
No, you're not gonna. I mean, no, I agree with that. But you can help. You can release the tension a little bit by giving them better living quarters. And I will say this in the comments. Karen said, "Why have they been living in squalor all this time? Clean it up, do something." Well, first of all, you need finances. Second of all, if you got 2 million people compressed in a very tiny area, and you guys are all broke, it's going to be messy. I mean, do you think they have really good rubbish removal and water systems? They don't have any money. It's going to be like that.
Caller is making excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just reading your comments. And the one thing, I don't know if you're following up to date, hour by hour. They shut off all the internet, cell phone access, Al Jazeera reporters. They went dark. They can't even report back to the network.
Yeah, they don't have lights. They don't have, and that's the thing. They don't have lights. They don't have water treatment. They don't have anything over there.
Some of the biggest armament drops, some of the biggest bombs I've seen throughout ever since October 7th. Some of these, and they're deploying the white phosphorus tonight. They're doing humanitarian crimes left and right. They're leveling this place. And if this was any other country doing this, because they pretty much, anytime someone, they blame the terrorists, which is the people living in the city, and then they just completely go after, what's it called? What's the term that the UN uses? Mutual destruction or whatever. Oh, collective punishment. Yeah, they just do the collective punishment where they just bomb the hospitals, they bomb the cities. Those people, I think they have the right to seek retribution, obviously, for those events that happened. But that doesn't give them the right to just go in there and carpet
Yeah.
bomb the whole place.
Well, like I said, there will be a reckoning for Israel at the end of this. If they don't change their ways, it's only going to be a matter of time before they're the victims of another terrorist crime. But I got to move it on, BLM. I do have
Well,
to. Go ahead.
that's why Joe Biden went there. That's why Joe Biden went there. He went there not to get peace talks, not to urge for peace. He went there to scare any of the leaders around to say, if any of your groups or if anything comes from your section, we're going to use the United States military to crush you.
Yeah, but you can't use the you can't use the United States to keep all the nations that want to help the Palestinians at bay while Israel continues to commit war crimes either. I mean, you gotta tell Israel, we got your back, but there's only so much you can do to these people. You can't pulverize them to the Stone Age.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want any of these Palestinian immigrants coming to America, and I don't want to be going to war with Iran. I think that's two of the most important things. Yeah. So I think if you're like a conservative American, you have to support the Palestinian people, and you can't be pushing for this war. You shouldn't be supporting Israel, and have a nice day, guys. Yeah.
All right, BLM Tel Aviv, good evening. Catch you next. Looking real quick on YouTube, I saw what it says, a nice platitude. What does that even mean? Problem is that the right and wrong varies per person. Common ground is getting scarce. Folks like the handsome liberal. All right, the cooler heads that prevail in the room. Appreciate the compliment on YouTube. Looking in the comments, somebody says a xenophobe. Elaborate. How so? How so? America just did drone strikes. Yeah, America is, because there are a host of nations that are sympathetic to the Palestinian people, that are eager to jump in and help the Palestinian people, but America is keeping them at bay. I guess the best example I could use is, let's take the George Floyd issue, where Chauvin is on the guy's neck. All of them other citizens were eager to step in and get this cop off the guy. But then you got 3 or 4 other cops that are sitting there, keeping the citizenry at bay so he can stay on his neck. Well, in regards to Derek Chauvin, he would be Israel. George Floyd would be Palestine right now. And the citizens are standing around wanting to get involved. The citizens wanting to get involved, Egypt, Yemen, Iran, fucking Lebanon or Beirut, Lebanon, whatever you want to call it. All of these countries really want to help the Palestinian people. But you got the United States standing there with 2 aircraft carriers in the region, keeping things at bay. If the United States was not in this, Israel would probably be currently at war with about 5 nations right now. There's about 5 or 6 nations that want to get their hands on Israel for what they've been doing. The United States is the only country that jumped up real quick and said, no, let me get over here. I think Biden had sent the carrier over there within like 48 hours because he knew what was going to happen. There are several countries that are dying to get their hands on Israel. It's almost akin to if a guy jumps up and smacks a woman in public, all of a sudden there's a bunch of guys that want to beat the hell out of the guy for hitting a woman. That's kind of what Israel is facing right now. There's a lot of nations that are in the Middle East that want to get their hands on Israel. And the United States is preventing it. That's about the only thing stopping it. I think there's at least 5 I can think of, but there are more. There are more that are kind of like secondary nations that would probably jump in and help defeat Israel if it wasn't for the United States. But Yemen, Egypt, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, those nations for certain would jump in and take out Israel if it wasn't for the United States. Looking in the comments, they're not afraid of Joe for sure. Conservative Moon, in regards to the comment that nations are not afraid of Joe Biden, maybe, but it doesn't work to their favor. Perfect example, folks say when Trump was in office, we didn't have any major wars. Under Biden, these nations decided to start acting. Let's start out with Russia. What was it, February of 2021, they decided to, or February of 2022, they decided to invade the Ukraine. So they were scared of Trump. We're assuming that Vladimir Putin was either fearful of Trump or he respected Trump and decided, well, Biden is a weak leader. So when Biden gets in office, now I can make my play on the Ukraine. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin, seeing Biden as a weak leader, thought that he would still be at war with the Ukraine in October of 2023? So even if Putin saw Biden as a weak leader, you got to admit Biden is exceeding his expectations. There's no denying that Putin thought that shit would be over with by now. There's no way he thought invading the Ukraine under President Biden would still be going on in October of 2023. Biden has exceeded his expectations. Do you think if Putin knew what was going to happen, he would have done that anyway under Biden? If he knew right now that war would still be going on, if he could go back 2 years, think he would have still did it? No, there's no way, because the guy, his exports have been reduced. He's sanctioned every damn where. He's damn near viewed as a war criminal. He can't travel. A lot of the most powerful oligarchs in this country have lost all their assets, their seasoned yachts, freezing bank accounts, all because they thought Biden was a weak leader. Biden doesn't look weak compared to Putin. How many soldiers has Putin lost in the Ukraine war? Remember, he probably thought this would be over in a few months. How many people has he lost? How many tanks, aircraft, equipment has he lost in this war that's going on almost 2 years? Because he thought this would be a weak president and this would be the perfect time to do it. Biden has exceeded his expectations significantly. They haven't taken much of the Ukraine in 2 years. That doesn't sound like a weak leader. That sounds like a bad estimation by Vladimir Putin, if you ask me. Somebody said he said 72 hours. Wow. Putin thought he would take over the Ukraine in 72 hours. Gonna be fucking around, gonna be 72 months if he keep going. Going back to the box. We'll go to, I don't know what I just did here. Hang on a second. I tapped something. What did I do? Okay, hang on. Okay, there we go. My ball six. I don't know what I did there. I think I brought somebody up and he dropped or whatever the case may be. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. You see the sign behind me. An armed America. You think crime would go down if every citizen had a gun?
I mean, I don't. It's hard to say, right? Because obviously, there's a lot of people out there who, without a pew pew, are probably going to mind their own business, right? It's the great equalizer, right? So, I mean, you think some skinny 120-pound dude is going to be robbing liquor stores by hand,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's an argument to be made that it, increases crime, but it also decreases crime. I'm down here in Arizona, and you know what? People can say what they want, but there's not a lot of pew-pew violence over here, right? There's not a lot of muggings. There's not a lot of SA. I mean, we've got our fair share.
Well, Mike, it's 110 degrees outside. It's too hot to be robbing somebody. My hands all sweaty on the gun. It's really hot in Arizona.
Well, I'm just going to take a liberal playbook, and I'm not going to talk about the correlations and the facts that make these things. I'm just going to say, there's no crime. But you're right. It's 110 out. Ain't nobody outside. It's like Portland in the winter,
And I'll tell you, I was kind of joking with that, but that is actually the case. Like in Chicago, anytime it's like 70 or 80 degrees on a Friday or Saturday night, I used to say that when I lived in Chicago, it's a good night for a lot of people to get murdered. When the weather is perfect, the crime is far higher. In Chicago during the wintertime, ain't nobody out doing drive-bys in below zero weather. So in Arizona, you guys have a lot of unhospitable weather. That might have something to do with it.
Well, we're still out and about, but for the most part, July and August, midday, if you're outside, it's important,
Right.
But I mean, to be fair on that, we got 8 months of really awesome weather. Where it's a good time to go out, turn it up, and what have you, right? The reason I threw my request in, what you were talking about was weapons of mass destruction, right?
Right.
Well, I would argue that our government shouldn't have those either, right? And we've even we haven't completely signed all of the ones that say like no biological, no chemical, or I think we did did sign the one about no biological, but we still got them.
Why do you believe? But why do you believe America should not have weapons of mass destruction as a government?
I think just like my criticism of Hamas, I think they've got a leg to stand on. I think Palestine has a leg to stand on. But if you indiscriminately target civilians, you're going to get the long G of the law. And weapons of mass destruction. Okay, there's an argument that back in the Cold War, most of those nukes were just pointed at other nukes.
Right.
But there were still plenty of nukes that were targeted at cities. And if you target, that means you are indiscriminately targeting civilians.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
You know? And the other reason I don't think we should have them, and of course it's a pipe dream, right? Because now they're here to stay, just like pew-pews. You're never going to eliminate nukes from the world's arsenal, five most powerful countries' arsenals. But the main reason I don't think they should have them is because once you cross that threshold, there's no going back. Every war game that's ever been played out where there's a nuclear weapon used, it's over.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no let's take a pause and breathe and let's talk about it. I have to launch all of mine because this is my only chance to launch.
I don't know. There could be a possibility. And by the way, somebody on YouTube asked, where are people calling in? It's on TikTok. The Handsome Liberal on TikTok is where the actual live stream is going. But in regards to what you suggested, if you fire a weapon, then it's just, we're going to destroy everything. There is a possibility cooler heads could prevail. Let's say, for instance, Russia fires a weapon and takes out Cleveland. And everybody in America is promoting us to take out St. Petersburg or something like that. There may be, let's say if you think Biden is a weaker president, maybe Biden steps up as opposed to just firing a nuke at St. Petersburg and then hoping they don't fire another one at Columbus. He makes a phone call, tells them, whatever you got to do to clear this up, pay, billions of dollars, whatever the case may be. But as opposed to us just wiping each other off the map, you got a choice. Do you want me to fire the other 1,999 weapons I got, or do you want to work it out? I don't. Sometimes during the fight, one person will step back and say, "Look, maybe we should just call it." I mean, so I don't know if a nuke is fired, does it guarantee that all is going to be lost? Sometimes there's cooler heads prevailing because at the end of the day, they like to send people's kids to war. They don't want to die themselves. And in an all-out nuclear war, nobody is guaranteed to live.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's a possibility, and I mean, we should maintain that hope. But every war game that's ever been played out ends with that you have to launch before X amount of time. Otherwise, your strategic stuff gets hit first, right? If we're just talking Russia versus U.S., right? Your strategic stuff gets hit first. So your only opportunity to strike back is now.
Well, yeah, but that's when you talk about having to fire all these weapons to take out the strategic stuff. We now have so many nuclear weapons that are under like the polar ice caps and things like that. You can't take them all out. I mean, we've probably got 100 different nukes that are floating around under the oceans. So you'll never be to take them all out. I mean, it's too many. One sub can have 20, 30 nukes on it.
Yeah, the mutually assured destruction is the only thing that really stopped certain sections from climbing. And I'll put this out there, that this is way above my pay grade of what they would do, should do, etc. And I'm glad that responsibility will never rest at my feet. And with all due respect, I didn't want to hamper on the subject itself because I've got no answer. I'm glad nobody's ever going to ask me, should we or should we not strike, right?
Right.
But I just wanted to use that analogy as like, when you're talking to people that are very pro-2A and they say, pro-nukes, whatever, that's my argument is the government shouldn't have them either. Now, when we talk about an M4, right?
But wait a minute. Let me not let you just move on. I understand you saying they shouldn't have them, but the government does have them. So because the government has them, should the citizens be able to have them?
I think the closest I would go to that is National Guards being independent, supposedly independent from the federal government, right? They're supposed to only be activated by the governor or requested by Congress as a militia, right?
So you would be okay with your state National Guard having atomic weapons?
I think that would be the closest I would be okay with. I want to be okay with civilians having them, obviously. I mean, there's civilians I don't trust with their boat. So,
Let me ask you about something that's with your boat. Let me ask you about something that's a little bit less explosive. Right now, particularly in the Israeli Palestinian theater, you got folks using armed drones like crazy. Would you be okay with citizens owning armed drones?
I mean, the answer is no, but technically, is it illegal? I mean,
Yes, it's illegal. Yeah, look. In fact, I have one, and I had to. If you notice on the side, I had to register this with the FAA or whatever, and that's one of the things they tell you is you can't put weapons on it. So yeah, it is illegal.
I'm not in the drone game.
Okay.
I mean, here's the deal, right? Yes, is there a difference between a just government having certain weapons that the civilian population doesn't have? Yes. But when we talk about, like when Joe Biden says, oh, what are you going to do with that rifle? We got F-22s. And it's like, okay, fair enough, but why have we been getting our asses handed to us by guys in pajamas for the last 60, 70 years? And I'm one of those. I'm a combat vet, so I'm allowed to say that. I mean, I'm not trying to talk from a point of privilege, but I'm just saying if people would take offense to that, right? But, you know, I was an Iraq vet, and
Yeah, but wait a second. But Biden I gotta say, Biden makes a point though, and I've said a lot of us on the left say the same thing when folks talk about owning firearms to prevent tyranny. I've said this a million times. There's nothing you ever are going to own that's going to prevent the government from being tyrannical if they want it to be. I mean, and I also pointed out this way because folks go, well, America's never had a tyrannical government because the citizens have always had guns. And I bring up, we've had slavery, Jim Crow, women's suffrage. Our country has been tyrannical almost its entire existence while you could own a gun. Tyranny has been existing in America the whole time.
No, at first I agree that we've been tyrannical the whole time, and you know, there's a lot of us who've been to combat who are saying, hey, are we the bad guy? I think I was talking with you about this last time I was on. You know, you put George Bush and his whole administration on that deck of cards, and you say, hey, is it any different than Saddam? I mean, you know, we invaded a country for supposedly having weapons of mass destruction, but we fucking got weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, what all I'm trying to say is, don't you think that those Jews in Germany would have started to say, hey, you know, these people aren't coming back when they get on that train. This is not good. Maybe I should fight. But
some of them did. Well, in response to that question, some of them did. In fact, I've watched some old Holocaust. I've watched some old Holocaust testimony, and when they were telling them you were going to take showers and putting them on trains, there are stories where the Jewish people would be forced to build railroads and things like that. So when some of those train cars were going by that were packed with Jews going to slaughter, some of the Jews that were on the side of the tracks doing forced labor would look at them and quietly do like the slice across the neck, letting them know you're about to be killed. There's nothing they can do about it. I mean, the Germans had them outgunned. It doesn't matter even if the citizens have guns. David Koresh and his crew had guns. It didn't work.
But, and I say this as respectfully as possible, the people who did not make it through that, do you think they would have rather died in that camp or died fighting in their own neighborhood like they did in the Warsaw Uprising, right?
I think some of them. I'll tell you this right off the bat. Even if you give everybody guns, if they're faced with a tyrannical government, there are going to be people that are going to surrender. I mean, you look at, like I brought up slavery before. Some people, even when given a chance to escape, did not do it. Martin Luther King had a hell of a time getting everybody to march. Even if you give everybody guns, some people are just not designed to fight. They don't have that spirit in them. They'd rather not get into a gunfight. So even with guns, I don't think every Jewish person would have fought back.
Well, hey, and that's your right. That is your right to go out, you know, however you choose. It's my opinion that, you know, if I was ever faced with that, You know, we don't need to waste our time on a train ride. We'll just do this right here at the front door.
But let me tell you how that goes though. If I'm doing something oppressive to you and you decide to shoot it out with me, as opposed to allowing folks to take the path of give me liberty or give me death, what I'm going to start making clear is that any of you guys that try to shoot back, I'm going to make you watch your child or your wife or somebody face incredible amounts of abuse before they die. And you're going to have a lot of maybe armed husbands that think twice because now I'm going to tie you up in a chair after I've shot you 2 or 3 times. You've lost the gunfight. Before you die, you're going to see your entire family being abused in some of the worst ways. That's what they do. They scare the hell out of people so that they don't take the path you're talking about.
Well, I would argue anybody who's willing to give you that ultimatum, I mean, they've made your decision for you, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but that don't mean your wife or your children are going to want you to take that same mindset. I mean, your children and wife that are scared, your wife doesn't want you to go take action that's going to force her and the baby to sit down and get tortured to pieces and back, chopping off fingers and shit like that. They're going to tell you, you got to think more than just for yourself. Your family may not want you to do all that.
I mean, hey, they gave Rommel that option, right? They were like, hey, you can unalive yourself. When they found out he was part of the plot, you can unalive yourself, and we'll leave the rest of your family alone. Or okay, I realistically, most people aren't going to get that ultimatum. It's just you're doing what we say, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we've gone down a deep rabbit hole, right? I don't think the country is at that. We're far.
Thank God. Thank God.
But you know, I mean, there's an argument to be made. You know, I mean, hey, we stood up, said the Pledge of Allegiance. We all ran around as kids. It's a free country. I can do whatever I want. But that's not the truth. And if you look at what the government does to us while we're armed, okay, hundreds of billions of dollars in asset forfeiture, right? You're not even under trial. And this piece came from the left. If anybody wants to know what I'm talking about, go to John Oliver, asset forfeiture, or civil forfeiture. And he says it's the United States government versus $10,421. Like they're not even after you; they're after your shit, right?
Yeah.
These people don't pay their taxes, like Hunter Biden. Oh, hey, next time please do your paperwork better. Me and you don't pay our taxes, take our house.
Well,
I mean, just because they're not loading us into cattle cars doesn't mean that we are not gears in their machine and subject to all of their rules. And it doesn't take much for that mechanism to go from these people are doing what they're told. And
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but if the government gets to be that rogue, I don't think your gun's going to stop them. That's all I'm saying. I understand what you're saying. Governments can't make shit. Some would say what happened on January 6th was an example of a government going rogue. I hear what you're saying. I'm just simply saying that if the government does get to be awful like that, I don't think the guns that you own, going Red Dawn or something, I don't think that's going to stop them. I mean, the amount of this is not the 1800s. The difference between what the citizens have and the government have now is so vast. Back in the 1700s, you could fight the government. Y'all both had horses. Y'all both had muzzle loaders. In today's society, you can't fight them. It's just completely different now.
And I will argue that that's going to be an unwinnable fight. So that why do I have what I have and all that stuff? It's like, well, that fight ain't going to last very long, right? The reason I have what I have is because bad guys have exactly the same thing. And when people make the argument that, oh, well, if we just make laws and we eliminate guns, so on and so forth. I mean, how'd the war on drugs work out? If there's a demand for it, they're going to get it in here. And then this guy in another live told me, oh, well, tell me what American gun manufacturers are down in South America, and I'm like, I don't know, but I don't own very many American ones. I got Heckler Koch, that's Germany. Sig Sauer, that's Switzerland. CZ, that's Czechoslovakia. I mean, it's not like if you just make it illegal for gun manufacturers to manufacture in the United States, we can't get those are the better ones anyways. America makes kind of shit ones. Springfield kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's not all that no more.
Yeah, what is Glock? Austrian? Because that's what I have. That's Austria, right? Huh?
Glock is Austria.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think, let me ask you this. What about, before I move it on, but let me ask you this last question. because I was asking this with the other caller, do you believe that the American gun owner should at least be able to demonstrate proficiency on the weapons they have? In other words, should training on what you own at least would you be okay with requiring that?
I mean, in a way, yes, but, and I want to put my rebuttal out there first. I mean, yes, that can eliminate some negligent discharges, but when people say, "Oh, we're not trying to eliminate the Second Amendment, we're just trying to make it a little tough," and it's like, well, yeah, and your argument is that we're going to make the bad guy better.
How is requiring you as a legal gun owner to get training? How does that make the bad guy better?
Because if they are required to have training, they will become more lethal.
Wait a minute. The bad guy doesn't even have a legal right to own a gun, so he's not in the conversation.
No. I'm talking about the people that weren't bad guys, went and bought one, went and did something bad, right?
Like the guy in Maine.
Right.
Okay.
So people are arguing you need training. Well, you're also talking about making this potentially bad guy more lethal. So what I'm getting at is it makes no sense to make that a caveat to ownership. Right? Now,
Well, wait a minute. So if you're concerned with the bad guy being more efficient due to training, then you should be in favor of a gun ban, because that's also helping the bad guy. The fact that he can even get arms to begin with.
No. All I'm saying is that is a pathetic argument from the anti-gun side that people should be required to have training. That's all I'm saying. Now, I will say, I do think that you should be able to demonstrate, just like when I lived in California, to buy one, now you have to pass, I think it's about a 20 answer test, right? And then you have to demonstrate to the clerk as they're making the transfer to you after you've waited your 10 days, you have to show them how to load it and clear it, right?
And if they cannot show that they can load and clear that gun, are they not legally allowed to own it?
Not yet. Come back for remedial training.
Okay, but until they can show that, they cannot legally own that gun.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, is that the law currently?
It would be in California. I don't know how many times you fail the test before you
Right.
It's not the law in Arizona. And people would say, "Oh, well, that's not very pro Second Amendment of you," and it's like, well, listen. I follow what the Supreme Court says. I think they mostly get it right. Every now and again, they don't.
So if for some reason, if the Supreme Court went really liberal and they took away the Second Amendment, would you follow what they say?
Well, the Supreme Court can't do that. Now, if 30 plus states went to state convention and did it, I'd have to consider where I live.
No, if for some, let's just say for shits and giggles, if for some reason the Second Amendment was repealed, would you give up your gun?
Nah.
So you're not.
Well, hold on. When I say I follow what the Supreme Court says, but not there, what I'm saying is, we haven't had to uprise because they mostly get it right. Okay, it's like the 21st Amendment was the prohibition.
Yeah. You're basically saying I'll follow the law until they pass a law I don't like.
No. What I'm saying is that would have to go to state convention. If the Supreme Court itself just came and said, we are ourselves going to undo the Constitution.
It ain't got to go all the way. All that ain't got to happen. If you get a 60 seat majority on the Senate and you got control of Congress, you can amend the Second Amendment and start taking away types of guns. You can limit certain types of ammo. You can do all kinds of stuff. They could make it so that the Second Amendment is essentially neutralized. Now, abortion is not in the Constitution. But the reason I'm bringing it up is they found ways before Roe v. Wade was actually overturned to pass laws that essentially neutralized it, such as a doctor has to have residency before he can give you an abortion. You can do the same thing with the Second Amendment. If you can get a 60 seat majority, you can amend the Second Amendment and add so much shit in there that essentially most people would not be able to own a gun.
And like I said, I would have to question where I live then, right? I mean, if it's come to that, then I think that wouldn't be the only thing. There would be other things going on in the country at the time where it's like, maybe I should go,
I don't know.
South America.
Okay, it could be. But I got to move it on, man. I appreciate you coming in, man. I always appreciate that subscription from last time. All right, moving it on. Looking in the comments, it would be federal law. And that's what I'm talking about. If the Democrats got a 60-seat majority on the Senate, had a Democratic president, one that's leaning pretty far to the left, and you had control of Congress, you could amend the Second Amendment. Maybe you could put an assault rifles ban in there. You could put stuff like what we're talking about where you got to have required training. You could put magazine capacity limitations in there. I mean, there are things you could put in there without taking away the Second Amendment. You could simply amend the shall not be infringed upon part. And by the way, I don't know what shall not be infringed upon really means. That's where we'll go to the Supreme Court. They would have to define what shall not be infringed upon actually means. Because if you really look at it, if you're saying that the citizens have a right to bear arms, and one of the reasons you have a right to bear arms is to prevent the government from becoming tyrannical, you should be to own machine guns, nukes, bioweapons, and everything. So it really depends on what the Supreme Court actually defines in regards to the term shall not be infringed upon. Like, how far does your Second Amendment rights go? Because bioweapons, those are armaments. You have a right to be armed. Well, what arms can I carry and which ones can I not carry? That would be a question for the Supreme Court. Right now, we are happy with semi-automatic weapons, heavy capacity, but we don't for the most part, owning a machine gun and automatic weapon is a little bit more difficult. But you never know, a Supreme Court in the future may say that's part of the Second Amendment. Everybody should be able to own a machine gun. So it depends on what they say. Looking in the comments, AWB magazine limits, etc., don't survive Supreme Court under the current framework of Heller and Braun. Well, you can't own a machine gun, but when you look at shall not be infringed in the Second Amendment, you should be able to own one. I mean, I'm just saying the way it's written. I'm not a fan of having a citizen owning a machine gun, or a Gatling gun, or remember the gun on Predator where the guys, Jesse the Body Ventura is taking out the whole damn jungle with it. You should be able to own that, right? I don't think a citizen needs that, but if you interpret the Second Amendment the right way, a citizen should be able to own that. Yeah, minigun. But the thing is, I don't even know how many rounds per minute is coming out of that thing. There is no legitimate reason why a citizen should have access to a minigun. Just simply no. Hell, even if you're talking about taking out violent protesters, a minigun is too much for even that job. I don't know why any citizen should have access to a minigun. Looking in the comment section, we'll keep it moving with Razor Buzz. We're asking a question, as you see on the monitor behind, would an armed America equal less crime? Can't really hear you, but most people don't even want a gun. I don't know if that, I think about what percentage of Americans own guns? It's got to be at least 40. You're saying most people don't want a gun. If it's most, it's got to be most by only a little bit. I think at least 40% of Americans own a gun. 60% says Big Blake. That's a lot. Is it really 60%? 60% of Americans are armed? Wow. I'd say it says 50 to 55, says Mike WZ. Well, that's the problem. I said as low as 40, somebody said as high as 60. Fact is, whether it's 40% or 60%, it shows that most Americans either want a gun. I mean, 40% is almost half by itself. Obviously, 60% is more than half. So it does show you most Americans, or at the very least, a hell of a lot of us, have at the very least entertained owning a firearm. Razor Buzz, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing this evening?
I'm perplexed at some of the answers I'm getting, so I figured I'd come to you. Do you believe an armed America would equal less crime?
Well, I'm a gun owner myself, but let me tell you something. The question of gun is simply a question of toys. People who love their toys don't want to give them up. I love going to the range with my son and enjoy shooting paper, and that's okay. And if tomorrow there comes a law that prevents me to have it, I just give them up.
But let me ask you this, because let me ask you, in regards to loving to go to the range and shoot paper and have fun with your gun, sporting things like that. When I lived in Australia, you could there was a potential to own firearms, but you had to leave it at a location. Like you could go to the range and shoot a gun, but when you leave, the gun can't come with you. So you still can do what you're talking about doing. If you're only shooting the gun at the range. Why does it need to be in your house? That's what I'm talking about.
You didn't hear me, did you? I said I will be happy to give them up.
Oh.
Because in the hands of many, they do harm. And personally, I see one harm done way too many. Okay? And especially because it's just simply a matter of toys. These people who are like insisting on having guns, they just love their toys. And they play with them. Sometimes they go and shoot them all day long and feel powerful and feel them. But But the thing is, if the Second Amendment was done precisely as it says, half of these people would have to give up their weapons.
Explain. What do you mean by precisely?
For a militia, be well regulated, be well trained, attend all the meetings that would make it well trained and everything. No,
Yep.
few of them will be able to keep it. So it's a matter of toys, and people like their toys, and they don't care if their toys,
Something. It's interesting you said it that way, because I've said the same thing, that most armed Americans are just carrying a gun. They don't have virtually any training at all. You go out and buy a gun for protection. You rarely shoot it. You rarely go. You're certainly not, taking firearms tests where you got to shoot from certain positions or separate good guys from bad guys. And most Americans are not doing it. They're just carrying a gun. The amount of training among American gun owners, in my opinion, is pretty damn low.
Okay, I have a concealed carry permit, but I don't carry my gun with me. And I agree with your previous guest. Training them, all that does in bad situation, make them more lethal.
Yeah.
Okay? The important thing is to gain control over what these tools do. Okay?
Right.
It's a tool. It's like when I started listening to the live today, you were talking to a gentleman who was comparing guns with money.
Yes.
Okay? First of all, that was a false equivalency. Okay? Money is a tool of exchange. If you get rid of it, then let's say you are a plumber, you have to go to the home of the grocer in order to get groceries and fix his plumbing. It just becomes, for lack of a better word, stupid. On the other hand, are tools that are made for a couple of purposes.
Right.
One, definitely, as I use them, is for having fun. Okay, going to the range, enjoying 2-3 hours with my son and competing with him.
But let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you and pose this to you, because this is in the comments and it's similar to what we're talking about now. This is coming from Otis Anderson. He said, if you give up your guns, the government will control you from now on like they do in other countries. Do you fear the government controlling you if you're unarmed?
Okay, that is the same argument as microchips in
COVID vaccines,
okay.
yeah.
They are controlling you. Even with your guns and knives, and even you have machine guns, they will be controlling you. You know why? Because they can bring more arms to bear against you and all the friends we can gather together for you.
Yeah.
How do the police stop, let's say, an active shooter? Because there's so many of them.
Yeah. And I've said this. I've said the same thing. I've said the same thing in regards to having a gun to prevent the government from controlling you. We've had gun rights in this country since the very beginning, and did not stop slavery, Jim Crow, or women from being controlled. Women's suffrage, and the LGBT community has been oppressed and unable to do anything they wanted to do for most of this country's history as well. So, yeah, having a gun has not stopped tyranny. We've had tyranny the whole time.
Oh, of course. Now, I want to get to what I came here to talk about, and that's the Palestine issue.
Sure.
Okay, we have to agree that any group of people who can plan and execute what Hamas did, they're not stupid.
Fact.
They have a purpose.
Right.
There is a reason why they did it. Okay, let's dig into that. Their reason cannot be destroying Israel, because simply their max force caused 1,400 fatalities.
Right.
Okay.
The reason wasn't to destroy. The reason was to deliver a message, which they successfully did.
I don't think even that was it. The reason they did it because they knew how Israel would react. And its reaction, even though it is causing so much hardship for their own people, okay, will weaken Israel's position in the world. And they will receive more and more pressure from other sides, opening the door for Hamas to become more powerful.
Okay, here's the difference, because obviously Hamas and the Palestinians are a separate entity, even though Palestinians can be part of Hamas, but they are two separate groups. I don't think what Hamas did will enrich the Hamas position. It will help the Palestinians out, but I think Hamas is over with at this point. I think they will be like ISIS or Al Qaeda. I don't think they're going to be allowed to survive. From now on, if you identify as Hamas, you could be bombed at any time.
Don't bet any money on that. Yeah, it could be, but don't bet any money on it, because you see, the thing is, let's take Israel, okay, and in its place, put any nation on earth.
Okay.
Somebody from the other side of the border comes in and does what Hamas did to Israel.
Right.
Would you think for 1 second there will be a single country in the world not to react the way Israel does?
No, I think every country would be, yeah. I think every country would go, but here's the difference though. Israel, let's go back to October 6th, the day before Hamas did what they did to Israel. On October 6th, was Israel the good guys?
Again, the good guy and the bad guy depends on where you look from. For example,
Let me rephrase. Was Israel doing anything wrong on October 6th?
Okay, in the country of Iran, okay.
To the Palestinian people.
Considers it the bad guys, and the people of Iran consider it the good guys.
I'm not talking about Iran. I'm talking about just in terms of humanity. Was Israel a good nation on October 6th, the day before that attack?
In that area, there is no good guys. I'm sorry.
All right then. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So.
Okay, there is no good guys, and the reason I cannot make Hamas a good guy in there is because they hide behind their own citizens when they know what is going to happen to them.
Yeah.
Okay? So that basically just wipes them off the slate as good guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not defending Hamas in any way, fashion, or form, but I'm just simply saying what they didn't happen for no reason at all. Here's the example. I've given this example before. It's like having a female, let's say Palestinian is the female, and the female is being attacked by her spouse. The guy is a woman beater. And all of a sudden, the female's brother comes over and slits the husband's throat. Slitting the throat is way overkill. I mean, yeah, this person was a woman beater, but slitting their throat is overkill. The brother is Hamas. What they did is overkill. But at the end of the day, this person was a woman beater. Israel is the woman beater. And what's going to happen is after Hamas faces justice, we are going to start looking at, yeah, you are a woman beater. Now we need to start talking about you as well. And that's what I said, that at the end of the day, despite how bad Hamas acted, they have now exposed Israel to the world as the example I'm using, where they're a woman beater. So at the end of the day, people are now, once Hamas is eradicated, Israel is now going to have to face the music as well. Like, you guys actually are bad people. Yeah, what Hamas did to you was overkill and was incredibly wrong, but what you guys are doing is wrong too, and you got to stop this.
Isn't that what I said in the beginning?
Something like that. Something like that.
Hamas to make them look bad, my friend.
Yeah.
That was all. And your example that you just used.
Yep.
After the brother comes in and starts slitting the throat and looks down and sees his sister has cut this man in 7 places, then suddenly change. You see, these situations don't have a good guy in them.
No. And that's what I asked you. I said on October 6th, was Israel the good guy? That's the answer. No, there is no good guy. They're both bad. One just went overboard, but at the end of the day, they went overboard on a bad guy.
Looking at you, I know you've seen a lot of fights in your life. Me, I'm 64 years old. I have seen so many that there's no way I could recall 1/10 of them. And in all of the ones that I have seen, I have never seen one side at fault.
I don't know if I would look at this one that way.
Did something, caused the other one to do something bad, escalated back and forth until it became a situation you can't salvage.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, let's hope they get this one under control. But I got to move it on, Razor Buzz. I do got to move on. Appreciate you holding and coming through, man.
Just one question for you. Do you remember the last talk we had about the price of gasoline and everything about a month or so ago?
I do remember that to some degree, yeah.
Yeah. Just wanted to see if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy your lives. Your lives are, for lack of better words, fair.
Thank you. I try to keep it that way. Come on back anytime. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.
You
Bye-bye.
too. You too. And I do appreciate the accolade from that gentleman. That's what I always say is we try to, like I said, if you enjoy civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle without any concern of the host trying to block, ban, or censor you, you're in the right place. For you folks that are still tuned in.
Live long and prosper.
I like that. So yeah, follow the program. Follow the program if you enjoy civilized dialogue. Looking in the comments, Hugh says paid opinion. Yeah, I wish. You ain't seen me wearing no hat and mustaches or galaxies popping up here tonight. Ain't nobody paying me shit. My night tonight, you guys have been tapping the screen. I do appreciate that, but it ain't been a lot of pay. Looking in the comments, what about this country? What about what this country is doing to women right now, says Andy. There could be a reckoning come election time for that, particularly with the rolling back of Roe v. Wade. And I've said that on many lives before, that there is nothing good coming down the pipe for women with the banning of abortion. It's going to criminalize a lot of women. At the end of the day, banning abortion is designed to protect the life of the unborn. It has zero concern with the carrier of that baby. Rape, incest, who gives a shit? Who cares how the mom feels? In some cases, even if the baby is not even viable because the heart is still beating, you got to carry it. There is zero concern for the person that's carrying that child. So at the end of the day, there's nothing good coming down the pipe for women and the rolling back of Roe v. Wade. It'll save some kids for sure, but it's going to destroy the hell out of some mothers to be. Looking in the comments, men and women's sports and bathrooms is a major problem. No, it's not. No, it's not. Who said that? Otis, the amount of, first of all, the amount of transgender in this society is pretty damn low. I mean, there are whole towns that don't have transgender people roaming around. The idea that a transgender, as a woman, The idea that some biological male coming into the bathroom to take a piss or whatever, take a shit or whatever, with a woman is a major problem. Is complete fabrication based on homophobia, because the belief is that a transgender person is not only a biological male that is now identifying as a woman, but they are also a sexual predator. That's what the problem is. That's why there's such an outcry, is because folks on the right, for homophobic reasons, are suggesting that all of these people are looking to harm your kids and commit sex crimes. There's no huge instance of sex criminality in the LGBT community. It's just not there. There's not a huge amount of folks posing as the opposite sex to harm kids, but that is the primary thing they're using to pass these laws. I don't want somebody going in there with my kid because they're not trying to harm kids. That's ridiculous. They're not trying to harm children. Now, in regards to the comment Otis is saying, is drag queens influencing your children in schools? Your kids get influenced from a whole host of things. I mean, saying God in the Pledge of Allegiance may influence a child. You're okay with that, aren't you? A kid should have to wait until they're an adult to decide what sex they want to be. Why can't they wait till they're an adult to decide what religion they want to be? You don't want that, do you? Take God out of schools. I mean, a kid should wait till they're an adult. Religion shouldn't be shoved down their throat. Suddenly the whole conversation changes. I think folks are okay with, what do you want to call it? Not propaganda, but whatever the hell it's called when you influence somebody. Indoctrination. Some folks are okay with indoctrination when they're indoctrinating them the way they want it. You got folks saying you should teach children how to use firearm safety in schools. That's shoving guns down kids' throats. A lot of folks on the right are okay with that. Texas Governor Greg Abbott trying to pass a law that requires you to post the 10 Commandments in all Texas public schools. I don't hear the right complaining about that. That's clearly shoving God down all of the kids' throats. No problem with that. So you're okay with indoctrination, just not the indoctrination you don't like. Looking in the comments, I used to agree with a lot of the handsome liberal, but he is blind. David, feel free to come in the comments or on the live. Let me know what you're thinking I'm blind about. You know, I'll let you speak. Do some research. In regards to the LGBT community influencing children, the question I have to ask is, in what way? Maybe if they're exposed to the LGBT community, they'll be influenced not to grow up hating them. What type of influence are you suggesting? Maybe they'll be influenced after having exposure to the LGBT community to not grow up thinking they're all freaks. Maybe that's the output of the influence. Why does all the influence have to be negative? I understand a lot of folks on the right believe that if children are exposed to members of the LGBT community, it'll make them all start being gay. I don't buy that. And I'll tell you for the simple reason. I knew from a very young age I liked titties. Period. Still love some titties. You couldn't show me a dick at age 4 and make me want to suck one. It makes no sense to me. So when folks go where if you expose them, it's going to, I think you know what you like. I really do. I don't think that seeing gay people makes you want to be gay. I just don't buy it. I understand some of you folks believe children are easily influenced. I don't believe that. I think that I tend to agree with what a lot of the folks in the LGBT community say. They knew at a very young age that they liked members of the same sex. And keep in mind, here's a perfect example. When you talk about children being influenced in regards to what they're exposed to, all children are heavily exposed to the heterosexual community. There shouldn't be any gay kids if influence made a difference. All children are exposed to the heteros. I mean, there are parents picking up their kids and kissing husbands. The teacher got a picture of her husband on the desk. There is heterosexual influence everywhere. So if the children were going to become what they're exposed to, they should all 100% be heterosexual, because that influence is everywhere. Yet they're turning gay. So they're coming out gay. So I don't necessarily buy into the argument that a child is going to flip to what they're exposed to. I just think that if you don't like dick, you're not going to like dick. I don't know where I'm getting that one from. But looking in the comments, that's like saying you are born with hate. Yeah, exactly. I don't think people are born with hate, and I don't think that. I think that people are born with sexuality in them. I do believe you can be 5 or 6 years old and know that you're attracted to the same sex. I know a lot of folks on the right do not believe that. Folks believe that being gay is only a choice. I disagree with that. I do. I mean, I knew, like I said, I knew from very young age that I liked titties. I found females attractive. Going back to probably 4 or 5 years old, I would assume that a gay person knew they found same-sex people attractive. Going back to 4 or 5 years old. Folks on the right don't believe that though. So, and I see in the comments, Big Blake says, no, there's no way. Okay, all right. Mookie says, Tim, why did you like them? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Just like a baby knows how to latch onto a boob and suck it. I don't want to go too far with this. They don't know why they like that, but they like that. All right, so I don't know, but I knew at a very young age that I was attracted to females. I mean, like I said, you could expose me to all the gay stuff you wanted to. I knew that I liked females, and it has never wavered from that. Looking at the procreation, whatever the case may be, the deity, Lord, Jesus, whatever you want to call it, it was put in us biologically to know that you like that. I mean, I just believe that's the way it is. I knew from a very young age. If criminals or government knows we are defenseless, what do you think will happen, says Peppermint Patty. Getting back to the main topic, in regards to it, if the citizenry is unarmed, the government is going to harm the people, because that's what Peppermint Patty is saying. She says, if criminals and the government knows we are defenseless, what do you think will happen? I don't feel like anything significant will happen. I don't buy the notion that America is just a very angry place full of monsters, and the only thing that keeps everybody at bay is everybody having a gun. We believe that if I don't have a gun, my neighbor's going to kill me. The government's going to be tyrannical. The police are going to overrun me. Everybody around me is a monster, and the only thing stopping them from getting me is having a gun. I think that the government just might govern. Perhaps they just may govern. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of nations with unarmed populations, and the government ain't doing that. There's plenty of nations on earth. Like I had a caller call in not long ago from the UK. The government in the United Kingdom is not running over the people and oppressing everybody. Same thing in Norway. Same thing in Australia. I lived in Australia. You could pretty much do everything you can do in America. You could own a house and a car with white picket fence. You could do all that shit there. Most of the citizens were unarmed. So I don't buy into the notion, and I agree with what Mike W. said in his fear tactics. I do believe that the government is just horrible, and the only thing keeping them from just devouring everybody is everybody having a gun. I don't believe that. I don't think everybody's just sitting back plotting how to get you, and the only thing that's stopping it is you having a gun. That's just literally living a life where you're skeptical of every damn body. It's got to be a horrible way to live. Looking in the comments, if a whole bus is armed and someone pulls one, they have lost their power. I don't quite get that. If a whole bus is armed and somebody pulls one, they've lost their power. Who have lost their power? I don't get that, because if you pull one on the government, they just blow up the whole damn bus. If you're on the bus, you could have a really nasty shootout that results in a lot of unwanted injuries. I don't get that statement. All nations that won't allow their people to own guns, the government is totally in control. Otis, I've brought up before, America's had slavery, Jim Crow, women's suffrage, all sorts of anti-LGBT atrocities, all while the Second Amendment was firmly in place. The United States government has been in control of its citizens and done some horrible shit to them, all while the Second Amendment existed right alongside it. The Second Amendment didn't save any damn body. I don't like using the privilege word, but I will say, and you guys can tell me to F off or wherever I'm getting it wrong in the comments, but generally when you hear people talking about having a gun prevents tyranny, my humble opinion, and I don't mean any harm by saying this, but it's generally white people. Because everybody else knows that tyranny can exist while gun ownership is in place. Because everybody else has already experienced it while you could own a gun. But for some reason, the white people tend to think, it ain't gonna happen to me though. I bet that shit won't happen to me. Fuck around and find out. But in reality, our country has been tyrannical most of its history. It really has. It's been tyrannical most of its history while you could own a gun. I mean, look at prime example. Remember, you've heard about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, where the citizens, with the assistance of the government, just literally wiped out an entire area, strip of businesses, homes, and whole neighborhoods where African Americans were basically thriving. The African Americans were armed. They were armed during that. They used World War I planes and actually dropped bombs and ordnance from the air. The African Americans had guns, took all this shit, and killed the ones that resisted. You talk about tyranny can't happen. Tyranny can't happen if you got a gun. There are tons of examples of it happening in this country despite our lengthy history of firearm ownership. It's happened right here in this country over and over and over again. Two wrongs don't make a right, says Chase. But I'm not saying two wrongs make a right. I'm just simply saying it is possible for the government to be tyrannical while you own a gun. I mean, people have had shit wrongfully seized, everything from eminent domain to just taking shit off people while gun ownership existed in this country. There's been ridiculous amounts of tyranny in America, all while the Second Amendment existed. It hasn't stopped it. It just simply hasn't stopped it. I want to apologize to you because my assumption of you was 100% wrong. Rio Nix, what was your assumption of yours truly? I'd like to know. Andy, good evening, almost good morning, but Andy, appreciate you holding on there. You see what's on the monitor behind me. What say you, Andy?
I said that's wrong.
You don't believe...
That's why it's constitutional carry, and we're up 29% on crime.
Repeat that.
Alabama went to constitutional carry, and now crime has gone up 29%.
Why do you think the crime went up even though people could carry?
Because now they're just taking the weapons and just using them. See, first of all, I think there's a misconception about weapons. You know, we complain about Mexico and all, but who provides Mexico with all their weapons?
Mostly the United States. Mostly the United States.
So the crime and the drug problem they complain about endlessly are also caused by what they don't want to get rid of. The mass unalivings are caused by what they don't want to get rid of. But yet they have no problem at all saying that a woman's right to privacy can go to the state.
Yeah. Well, you and I both know that the end goal is to ban abortion federally, though. They're just in the state right now to calm you down.
I want to thank Republicans for making the new Speaker of the House who he is, because his extreme views will cause women in red states to vote blue. So I would like to go ahead and thank them now.
Well, I don't know, because Biden is not energizing people to vote. So if we don't have...
We have to now. Women, what was the midterms about?
Yeah.
Even though men's going to be the economy, but what were the midterms about?
Yeah.
Women's rights.
Yeah. But then why do you think that...
Women's rights.
Then why do you think that among liberals, why do you think Biden is doing so poorly in the polls?
Because we don't poll. Republicans, it's like the T-shirt thing and all that. They're all into it. We hired a man to do a job. We don't really care, about if he's doing a horrible job, we'll call him or whatever. But as long as he's doing his job, we don't look for polls. We don't
I gotta disagree with you to some degree because when you talk about Trump supporters really being into it and we're not into it, like we were into it like that when Obama. When Obama was president, people were wearing T-shirts and stuff. They're just not big fans of Biden.
Well, I mean, he was the first African American man to become president, and he was good at his job.
Yeah.
And Biden is not doing bad.
Well,
Chips Act, Black Act.
well, in regards to
With infrastructure going on.
well, in regards to Biden not doing bad, I'll tell you this. He needs to get his message out. He really needs to get his message out better.
Well, I was talking to the rest of the Democrats today, and I said, when they say Democrats don't make it well, y'all, they mean us.
You said, say that again?
So we have to go out and do our part in getting the message out, and, you know, on our side as much as. But I mean, you got to admit, the man in here, just like Obama, he inherited a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Well, some would, but some would argue that but Andy, some would argue that the fuel prices in the economy were actually better under Trump. You're saying he inherited a dumpster fire.
Okay, well then I would say they're uneducated because Trump did not control gas prices. When people don't drive, that's called supply and demand. So when there's no demand except for the one country that doesn't listen and won't wear masks or follow, you know, any kind of other thing to mitigate the spread of the virus.
Well, but I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. And by the way, Dak on YouTube, the account right now is not able to do that. I appreciate I would love that donation, but I can't. This account can't be done that way for some reason right now. So wow, but I appreciate that. Let me just say this in regards to what you said about President Trump in the pandemic or whatever the case may be. Under President Trump, the pandemic didn't really take hold in America until early 2020. If you go back to 2019, 2018, the economy was really good under President Trump. So I don't know if I totally agree with you.
Well, Trump did tell Saudi Arabia to quit drilling right afterwards. There's a whole lot more than just that surface conversation.
Okay.
I don't really think we have time to get into all that. When I look at would an armed America equal less crime? Yes, I think so. Because, first of all, I want to go over the Second Amendment. We as individuals are not a well-regulated militia. When they wrote that, we did not have a national army. So the states were called up to protect the country. So when they say a well-regulated militia, isn't that the National Guard now?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Yes.
Right. So and shall not be infringed has already been debunked by Judge Alito because he said you can't have any weapon you want.
Yeah. Well, I will say this: when you hear the term "well-regulated militia," I have to ask the question, what's regulated? If you're talking about shall not be infringed and you should be able to own with it, there's no regulation in that at all. That's not, you don't even have to have training. What well-regulated militia has zero training? So something's wrong with that. Yeah, that's not true.
You were right earlier. You should at least know how to break down your weapon, clean it, how to fire it. You should have some training.
Yeah.
The Federalist Papers are for the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court already decided for you. So, there. Okay. And so the second thing is that most of these people, like now in Alabama where you don't need a permit or anything, you're not getting background tests and all that.
Right.
Most people are not responsible gun owners.
So wait a minute, you're saying in Alabama you can get a firearm with no background check? That can't be right, is it?
Depending on what you buy, yeah.
How do you get a gun with no?
If you don't buy it from a registered dealer, I can buy it from an individual online.
So if you buy it from a dealer online, they don't have to ask you any questions at all?
You don't necessarily have to buy it from a dealer. If you buy it from an individual, it doesn't matter.
Is that legal though?
Yeah.
So
Alabama's got a brand new constitution. You should read it. It's horrifying.
Wow. So a citizen can sell another citizen a gun without asking him a damn question at all.
Yeah. Anybody in Alabama in the comments answer yes or no.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks. Yeah, I see a lot of folks are somewhat agreeing with you. Then what you're basically is talking about is the gun show loophole. Sounds like then that they said never existed.
Well, I mean, they made it constitutional carry, so you don't have to answer to. But my biggest problem is, like, if you're, like, I am a gun owner, people. Shockingly enough, I am a responsible gun owner who has a biometric safe that I put my thumb on, and it automatically spits it out to my hand.
Yeah, you're not supporting like 100-round drums. I mean, I'm assuming there's certain guns you don't think it's.
Absolutely not. That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. Republicans care more about Ronald Reagan than they do about all these kids because they didn't have any problem passing the Brady bill bipartisanly.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched a video today of they had it. I think it was on The View where they played a clip of Ronald Reagan saying that nobody needs an AK-47. He was not a fan of long rifles, apparently. Yeah.
And I mean, after he got injured, and I mean, the whole country was on board. Plus, in 1993, we had enormous amounts of crime. You know, so they were all on board. So they proven that it saved about 10,000 lives until somebody took it to court and proved it unconstitutional. That's what ended up being, because they didn't like the background check parts and all. So the Brady bill would have to be reworked. But I'm sorry, if you need more than 10 shells in your magazine, you really shouldn't be hunting. You don't know how.
You just missing everything. So you basically believe a citizen owning a firearm shouldn't need more than 10 rounds in it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, most citizens carry more than 10 rounds. The typical Glock has more than that.
I got news for you. Most men, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about you, but I view most men as having those as an extension of another member of their body. Just like my ex owns an AK, and I told him yesterday that before the incident happened, I told him he should get rid of it. He said no. We had an argument, and I said, well, the next one that happens, I'm blaming on you. Turns out it happened that night. So I told him, I said, by the way, you don't even hunt. I'm the hunter. I was the hunter in the house. Why do you need that?
Yeah.
Oh, I said, never mind. I know that LD innards. That's what it is.
Well, hopefully not. All right, Andy, I got to move it on. But
let me change it real quick.
Real quick.
This is important. In the Galleria, we had a incident where there was somebody that had stole something, whatever. Everybody in the mall pulled out a weapon to stop the bad guy, and there was a young officer there who was a nice black man who came back from the military. He also pulled his weapon. Who do you think the cops came in and shot?
Yeah, that happened in Chicago to a security guard. Club security guard took a gun from an unruly patron in the club, and the cops showed up and shot the security guard. That is a good point. If you're a good,
got it wrong because they looked around the room, they saw the one black guy with a gun, and that's who they shot. They did not even get the perpetrator. That's something I would fear in regards to being a good Samaritan. But Andy, I believe in the castle doctrine. You should be able to protect your home. Yes. You should not be able to shoot someone that knocks on your door to ask you if you want to buy the paper. I do not believe in the stand your ground law because I think too many people have used it to go hunting for human beings as an expedition. Just say it. You're talking about George Zimmerman. All right. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you. Absolute. Good talk, Andy. And I'm one of the things, and I'll answer your question on YouTube, Dactor, in a second. But one of the issues, I'm with her on the stand your ground. I'm not a fan of stand your ground. And now she referred to it as using it as an excuse to hunt people. I don't think that that's a really bad statement because I do believe, to me, stand your ground is kind of like cementing fuck around and find out. Or I wish a motherfucker would. In other words, you got somebody who actually wants to shoot somebody, but
I don't want to do it myself, but I'm looking forward to somebody provoking me to do it. Stay your ground. I'm just not a fan of it because you can do things to provoke someone to do something to give you a reason to shoot them. I think George Zimmerman is a perfect example where he done something to protect. I mean, you're chasing Trayvon Martin off into the middle of the night. Okay, you catch up with him and the guy's angry or something. Now you got to shoot him in self-defense. I just think that staying your ground creates a lot of scenarios that would not exist if that particular law was not there. I'm not a fan of it. I just am not. Looking in the comments, Dak on YouTube asked a question I wanted to respond to, which is, do you realize that weapons that kill are not the legal ones? In regards to legal guns not killing people, only illegal guns, I don't necessarily agree with that. And the reason why I say that is because most mass shootings of the last 10 years or so, they're happening from legal gun owners. The person who committed that crime was 100% legal until they shot off that first shot. Most of these folks that are doing this, including the guy in Maine. The guy in Maine was 100% a legal gun owner. If he had got pulled over for speeding or something before he did that, they would have let that man go with his weapons. He was 100% legal until he started firing shots. The guy in Buffalo, guy in Ubalde, Sandy Hook, all these folks are legal gun owners until they start shooting. So the idea that that people are not being killed by legal guns, I don't totally agree with that. What I will say is it used to be a case of drug dealers and thugs and thieves doing all the killing. You're starting to have an instance where a lot of legal gun owners are killing people. It's more and more legal gun owners are now starting to get involved in the killing. Same thing with the road rage incidents. Those folks are legal gun owners until they get into an argument on the highway and pull their gun out. Same thing with the Karens you're hearing about. I don't want you barbecuing in my neighborhood or using the pool. They are 100% legal gun owners until they get in that argument and pull that gun out. There's a lot of legal gun owners committing bad acts lately. In the last 10 years or so, the rise in because more people are getting their hands on guns. More of the population is armed. And as I said earlier in the live, humans are flawed. If you give all humans guns, there are going to be people who snap, people get hooked on drugs, people who have anxiety and depression issues, people who are defending their egos, and they're going to do something wrong. And sometimes a person may have not did something had they not had access to the gun. I mentioned George Zimmerman. I mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse. I mentioned Ahmaud Arbery or whatever the case may be. I think all three of those cases are people who did something that they would not have been involved in if they were not armed. I'm not saying that what Kyle Rittenhouse did was self-defense. 100% it was self-defense. They were going to kill that guy. But if he wasn't armed, he wouldn't be there. He would not have put himself in that situation if he didn't have that gun. George Zimmerman would not have went off and chased Trayvon Martin into the night if he was not armed. Same thing with Ahmaud Arbery. They would not have done what they did if they did not have guns. The guns are giving folks some type of superhero complex that they think they're capable of doing more than they are. So the idea that most guns doing all the killing are not legal guns, I don't totally agree with that. There's a lot of law-abiding folks that were completely what they would have referred to as good, upstanding citizens until they started pulling the trigger. It's a lot of those folks out there nowadays. Okay, my last caller mentioned you shouldn't be able to shoot somebody through the door. That old man who did that was a law-abiding gun owner until he pulled that trigger. He shot the black kid through the door. You're starting to have a lot of law-abiding legal gun owners shooting people. I mean, it's just tons of stories like that. Looking in the comments, you have 360 million people in the U.S. Every now and then you have a mass killing. Yeah, I won't say every now and then, though. ABC News said we have 500 for the year. It's not every now and then. Every now and then you might have 10 or more, But 2 or 3 people, 4 people getting shot, that's just happening everywhere. The folks on the right bring up Chicago all the time. I would tell you Chicago, 3 or more people getting shot. That happens a lot in Chicago. Happens a lot in the big cities. It's not happening every now and then. It's happening every week, if not every other day. It's happening a lot more. In fact, it happens so much that they don't even get a chance to cover it all. You know, kid brings a gun to school and shoots 2 or 3 people. Nowadays, that may not even make national news. You got to hit a 3-point shot before they even give you on a highlight reel nowadays. You probably got to kill at least 5 or 6 people before you even get a decent amount of coverage. You killed 3 people. You're not an A-lister. You ain't good enough to get that. We'll cover it in your hometown. I mean, it's happening that often. They can't cover them all. Looking in the comments, Capernor, I think I'm pronouncing that. Good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon. You see what's on the monitor behind me. What say you?
I think this is something that, it's become second nature for us to talk about, and it's clear that we're either unwilling or unable to do anything about it. And
well, we clearly are able, because we had an assault rifles ban before and things like that. We clearly are able. It's more like unwilling.
Well, yeah, I mean, check it out. For any law, anytime you're going to put any law in place, you're asking yourself, am I willing to restrict myself a little bit to protect a stranger's life? And usually the answer to that is, yes, I will restrict myself a little bit to protect someone I don't know. I mean, an example would be the speed limit. You could be like a race car driver who could very safely drive at 120 miles an hour down the road, okay? But just because you are a professional race driver doesn't mean everyone else is. Therefore, even if you're a professional race driver, you still have to obey the speed limit. So
right.
You are restricting the ability of yourself to get to wherever you're going faster to protect the other people who might not.
Well, let me, in regards to your comment about restricted, let me ask you this. And by the way, folks, you 200 plus of you here, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 55,000. I would appreciate if you get the likes up. Helps out the algorithm. Maybe brings a few more people that's still in here are still up at this time of hour. So tap the screen. In regards to your comment about being willing to take a mild restriction to potentially save lives. When it comes to restrictions, I have to ask, how many Americans, even among the gun owners, like own 100-round drums, or even AR-15s for that point? I mean, if you ban 100-round drums, how many gun owners would actually even face a restriction that they would even notice? I mean, very few Americans own, really, really high capacity magazines. I mean, even the 30-round clip or magazine that it goes in an AR, most gun owners in America don't own AR. So even if you put these restrictions out there, I don't even think most gun owners would be affected by it.
And you're right, but the thing is, they don't even want to have the possibility of a restriction on themselves to protect a stranger. They want to be completely able to go out and buy a 100-drum ammunition round if they wake up and the mood strikes them to do so. So they're not even willing to say, I will restrict myself in that capacity to protect a stranger. They are not willing. If you're a legal gun owner and you're a good guy and you want to have your guns, they're saying, I won't even go through some rudimentary training in order to protect the life of a stranger. They don't want any restrictions at all because they don't care about the life of the stranger, like at all.
So would it be safe to assume that you're suggesting that America doesn't care about lives lost in mass killings?
I'm thinking that anyone, let me try to say this like diplomatically. I'm saying they care in their brain. They're telling themselves that they care, but they are not willing to even go through the slightest inconvenience to potentially prevent it. So they care in their heads. They think they care, but they really don't.
Yeah. That's thoughts and prayers. You sound like you're saying thoughts and prayers, basically.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, the bottom line is, like mental health, for example. People are always saying we need mental health, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine, let's have mental health. Will you go through a mental health check before you can purchase a weapon? no, I will not, because that is a restriction on my Second Amendment rights. They won't even do that. So the mental health argument is complete bunk.
Yep.
Because when people try to come up with ways to implement the mental health argument, the answer is always no, because it's a restriction on their ability to buy whatever weaponry they want.
I agree with that, and I've said that before. Because when on the left, the Democrats believe banning guns or limiting gun access will solve this stuff. Folks on the right believe that banning or limiting guns don't have any effect at all, but it's mental health. But like you rightfully pointed out, even though the right is claiming that the solution involves mental health, they cannot enact any type of mental health laws because it's infringement. I mean, if I take away your gun because you threaten to kill your wife, then I'm infringing on your gun rights. So they're saying it's mental health, but their charter is based on protecting the shall not be infringed phrase. So even though they feel it's mental health, they essentially are doing nothing about it.
You can have the best mental health system in the world, but if you have no way to identify and target the individuals who need access to that mental health, they might as well not be there. A person who is thinking about, shooting up a supermarket is not going to wake up and say, oh, I need mental health help because I'm thinking about shooting up a supermarket. I mean, that's dumb. They're not going to take advantage of it. You have to have some kind of governmental programs, which would be an infringement possibly of privacy, possibly of gun rights. You have to have some programs in place that identify those individuals. And if you have that program in place, sometimes an individual who should not be targeted will be targeted. Hopefully it's rare and that person is cleared quickly. But in a nationwide system, that will happen from time to time. But the strong 2A supporters are saying, no, I don't want to risk that I will be red flagged and have to go through that bullshit. They're not even willing to go through that, even though it might prevent a mass pew-pewer from getting access to a weapon.
I've asked that question before on the lives. Which one is more important, protecting the Second Amendment or saving lives? And it's amazing how many people say protecting the Second Amendment is more important than saving lives. So I agree with what you're saying, and I do think that is the backbone, is that as long as your goal is to maintain the shall not be infringed upon portion of the Second Amendment, then everything else takes a back seat.
Absolutely. And here's like the other thing too. Most people would say you should have to go through some rudimentary training. Like even the Second Amendment people will say you should have to have some rudimentary training to own a gun. But they are unwilling to use government to enforce that. I'm a perfect example. I got a 9mm, I got an AR-15, and I got a double-barreled shotgun, okay? I bought them. Do you know how much training I've had with them? Zero.
Yeah.
I've had zero training with this weaponry. And I have no desire to do so. They've been locked in my safe for 2 years. The sons of bitches probably don't even shoot right anymore because they got cobwebs in the barrel, okay? But I do have them. And if I was ever in a situation where I had to take that out and try to take down a mass pew-pewer, I guarantee you I would be just as likely to bang an innocent bystander as the assailant. Because I don't know how to use the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
But I would still probably try. And that is a bad spot for me to be in. You know, if I had to go through training to keep my weaponry, I would either go do it or I would get rid of the weapon.
And I will follow what you said, because I see tech girls in the comments in regards to your lack of training saying that's your fault. But he is saying, in my opinion, most gun owners do not have proper training. You can say it's their fault, but at the end of the day, if you didn't require citizens to have a driver's license, most of them wouldn't have a driver's license either. You want people just running into each other and crashing all over the damn place. You can't leave it up to the citizens, because
It is absolutely my fault that I don't have that training. It is my fault. But at the end of the day, if I use that gun incorrectly and an innocent person gets unalived, it's my fault that I did that. But it was because I wasn't required to have any training. And that's dumb.
And I see JC in the comments saying most gun owners are veterans. That's not true. That ain't true.
That's not true.
That is not true. There's a hell of a lot of non-veterans that own guns. I don't know what percentage, but I can tell you there are millions of gun owners that are not veterans. So that.
I got a buddy who has an arsenal. Here's the worst thing too. Okay, I got a buddy who has an arsenal of weaponry. He knows how to use that up and down. He's not a veteran, and he has offered me free training. My brother at my local sheriff's office. He begs me all the time to go out and learn how to use my weapons. And I'm not interested in learning how to use them.
Yeah.
I just want to have them in case someone breaks into my home, and I could probably hit them from 3 feet away if I needed to. But beyond that, I don't know how to use the son of a.
Yeah. And that's why, and based on what you're saying, I would be more in favor of citizens having guns to protect their homes. Like you said, I can hit somebody 3 feet away. If you're defending your home, that's a close quarters gunfight. You don't have to have a lot of marksmanship. Especially if you're using a shotgun, you don't need a lot. But when you're talking about people walking around in society, you try to defend when you try to defend yourself against a carjacker or somebody who may be running down the street or something like that. Now you need marksmanship because you're hitting other houses and other things that are your backstop. And yeah, most citizens, I don't think they don't have training. They don't. Now in the comments, people were saying that's your fault. Okay, fine, but
It's my fault. The point is that it's my fault. That I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I should have to do it. My guns are probably never leaving my house. I have taken my 9mm and shoved it in the glove box every now and then when I go on like trips, just to have it there. But beyond that, those guns are never leaving the house.
Yeah.
But I could take them out. It is my fault. I don't have training. But the bottom line is, I don't have to have it to own the weapon.
Yes, and you're preaching to the choir, man. I gotta move it on, but I agree with you 100% on that. You should have to have training. Yep. Good talk. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. And listen, like what Techie girl was saying in the comments. Yeah, it's his fault. Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I grew up during an era where you didn't have to wear a seatbelt. You didn't have to have a car seat for young children in the back. You didn't have to even have liability insurance when you drove. If something went wrong, it's your fault. Yeah, that didn't stop people from That didn't stop people from doing it. So the point I'm trying to make is, even though it may be that person's fault, people could be killed. People are dying. So you don't leave it up to the citizen to do something responsible like that. It should be a law for you to own that firearm. You can demonstrate proficiency. Because when you leave it up to the citizen to do what's right, most of them are not. I don't believe even half of American gun owners are getting frequent training on the firearm they carry. I think in most police departments, you have to go at least to the range at least once a year or something like that. I don't think most Americans do that. I don't think most American gun owners go out and train on their weapon even once a year. I don't. I used to. I don't fire my pistol once a year. So it would be my fault. Okay, maybe I end up in prisoners, but that doesn't mean the person deserved to be shot. If you could prevent that via some type of training law, why not do that? Same thing I mentioned with driving a vehicle. There's a reason we have 3-letter organizations, EPA, FDA, and these organizations, because if you left it up to the citizens, they would dump waste in your waterway. If they could shoot a bald eagle and cash it in, they would shoot everyone to the point where bald eagles are extinct. You need government to stop people from destroying every fucking thing. I understand a lot of folks on the right don't trust government. However, the people aren't trustworthy either. These government organizations didn't come up for no reason at all. They were created because the people were doing shit that was not right. For the environment, for other people, you name it. It's the reason why you have inspectors. You need to do something with your home, you got to get a permit. Because if you just left it up to the people, you might be living next to somebody who loved President Trump, loved the $2 gas, thought when President Biden came along, well, he gonna fuck up the economy. Let me go to the gas station. I built a tank in my basement. I'm going to store 1,000 gallons of gas in my tank so I don't have to pay the $3 a gallon that's gonna happen when Biden gets elected. So now you're living next to a neighbor that's got 3,000 gallons of gas in his basement. You need 3-letter organizations because the people won't do what's right. It is as simple as that. If you don't have government telling people to, and you just let the people do whatever they want, this is what you're going to have. An entire population, all armed, with very little training on how to use the gun. I suppose nothing could go wrong with that, huh? Looking in the comments, we do not need the ATF. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. You don't need the ATF. Do you know what would be in that alcohol you're drinking if it wasn't regulated? You like moonshine that much? Would you trust the cigarettes you're smoking if they weren't regulated? I mean, you see what the drug dealers are doing. Their industry is not regulated. They're using fentanyl on their shit. You want that to be in your products you're buying in the stores? Remember, if I'm selling cigarettes or tobacco, I want you addicted because you become a permanent customer. No regulation. I'm going to put a little bit of cocaine on your cigarette. I want you coming back. I need your money. I want all of it. So I'm going to start doing things to your product so that you get hooked on it. No ATF, huh? Okay, good luck with that. Look, we do need the ATF. Kenneth Pearson, I agree with you. It would be more pure. They have added thousands of chemicals to tobacco due to government regulation. No, it wouldn't be more pure. It would be varied. Like I mentioned, the illegal black market drug industry is a perfect example of what your products would be like if there was no ATF. Maybe you buy a pack of Marlboros at the gas station, and then you go to the supermarket and buy a pack, and it tastes totally different. Because just like in the drug game, everybody is using different shit. There's no regulation. The drug game is a perfect example of what happens when there's no regulation. You go buy $20 worth of smack over here, and it's a totally different type of smack than $20 over here because there's no regulation. Some folks, some of my weed smokers out there would submit to you that one of the best things they could ever did with marijuana is legalize it, because now you know what you're actually getting. It's regulated. You actually know what you're getting in your purchases. I don't know. I don't smoke weed, but I'm telling you what I'm hearing about that. We'll leave it at that. Look in the comments. Have a firearm, said Shannon. I believe things need to be reeled in, but if it's up to the current administration, no one would. You think things would be reeled in under Trump? Didn't Trump promise to get rid of 3-letter organizations? Didn't he promise if I'm elected, for every organization I create, I'll get rid of 2? I don't think that sounds any better than what Biden's doing. You're going to get rid of the organizations. Obviously, Trump was not listening to the CDC and the FDA on COVID. The FDA was telling you what to take, and the CDC was telling you what to do, and Trump was saying, I know more about COVID than anyone. He became a virologist while he was president. I don't know if what Trump was doing would be any better. Looking in the comments, good night, Hanson. So nice to hear you. Appreciate that, Kenneth Pearson. Any real people left in this damn world with common sense? Because in here it's a joke now, says David. Let me go back to the box. David, you need to be on here. Tech girls. this should be interesting. Techie girls. Good morning now.
It's past midnight here.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Okay, so the question first off, would America be I say no. Because the criminals are still going to get the weapons.
So, but the question is saying, if everybody in America was armed, do you think the crime rate would drop?
No.
So if everybody had a gun, you think there would still be plenty of crime?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
Because, like the gentleman that was on before me, I mean, he has weapons, but he's not trained. And what I was saying was, if you're not trained, then you shouldn't pull it.
Yep.
That was the point I was trying to get across. If you're not trained in it, don't pull it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I do believe that most Americans, as I said before, I don't think most Americans are trained on the firearms they own.
Yeah. I mean, me and my daughter, my 15-year-old's going tomorrow to the range to get practice in, because I just think it's important. But I'm in South Louisiana. my two oldest kids graduated school with gun training.
It was in school?
In school, they taught them.
Wow. So, because folks believe that if you expose children to LGBT issues, it could have an effect on them. I mean, if you expose them to guns, is that, I mean, can children be influenced by exposing them to guns in school?
I guess, I mean, it was one of those that you could sign out or sign in if you wanted to. We're avid hunters, so we wanted our kids to.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. It's just like with LGBT books in libraries. You can sign in and sign out. You don't have to take the book. They still don't want them there.
Yeah, I mean, I get that argument.
I mean, I'm just trying to see if we believe children are easily influenced and you don't want CRT or LGBT issues taught in schools. I mean, if you got gun training in schools, that I mean, I would assume that can influence them.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds like people are okay with indoctrination and influencing children as long as it's what they think is right. I mean, because like I said, guns could influence a kid just like a gay guy could.
Yeah, but the video games and all that could too. I mean, that's good. I put it in the comments earlier. You know what's wrong with America? We're desensitized. We're totally desensitized.
I saw that, and I do agree with that. We are I mean, I've watched most of the stuff you hear on the news about what's happening in Israel, not Palestine. What's happening in Palestine, we don't get to see as much because they've turned off the internet and power. But I've seen uncensored versions. Yeah, Andy, thank you. First one of the night. I've seen most of the unedited video of a lot of those killings in Israel. I mean, the initial raid, when they were shooting, I've seen that. I mean, it is awful. I mean, but you're right. You get desensitized to it. Whoa!
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of the problems. I really do think that's a lot of the problem with America. We're very desensitized. I mean, it's sad the mass shooting happened, and not to say it doesn't still shock you, but it doesn't surprise you like it used to.
Well, I think the desensitization is part of a 1-2 punch. And here's what I mean. Like, I lived overseas. You could get Call of Duty and the violent video games. Almost all of American television is shown in Australia. So I'm talking the Law and Orders, the NYPD, whatever cops show you, all of that stuff is shown over there. So they see all of the same violence that we see in America. The only difference is they don't have access to the tool to perpetrate the violence. So it's a 1-2 punch. Yeah, we're desensitized. A lot of other places are desensitized as well. However, we actually have access to the guns you see on Call of Duty. In America, you can get those. You can't get those in other countries.
Right. Yeah, I mean, which I get, but I mean, I think that there's a lot of illegal guns on the streets.
Yeah.
And a lot of careless gun owners.
Well,
I mean, do I think that they should have training? Of course. I think that everyone, whenever you buy a new firearm, I think that there should be, background checks, and no matter if it is a private sale. And I mean, yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of a common sense thing, but common sense isn't so common anymore.
Yeah. Well, to me, being against mandatory training for the firearm you own that shows there's no common sense. The idea that I refuse to require a citizen to actually be proficient on a firearm, or better yet, if Andy, you guys with these green eyes, I like that. That's cool. I never seen it before. Thank you. The idea that in America, speaking of those green eyes, you can own a gun even if you don't have eyes in this country. In a host of states, you can literally own a gun without eyes. When I say lacking common sense, that's what I mean. How the hell can a citizen own a gun that doesn't have eyes? If there's anything that says no common sense exists, that is it. You can own a gun with no arms and legs. Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, and I get it. And I think a lot of the right is kind of like you said earlier.
wait, hang on. Just real quick, I'll let you continue. But in regards to what I just said, you can own a gun without eyes and without arms and legs. User 471 said because his other senses are higher. What does that mean? You know, Stevie Wonder has a better sense of feel than he does since he's blind. Do you give a gun to Stevie Wonder because his sense of feel is better? I don't understand that. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. There's no common sense no more. Anyway, oh my Lord, that just made me lose my whole train of thought right there. I'm going.
I don't know what to say. I just saw that I had to read that. That is crazy. He has a sense of feel. Oh my God.
Wow. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. The right. I remember now. The right is. I think they're worried about it starting with one and it trickling down to all of them.
Yep.
I mean, I really think, you know, because I did a lot of research to see, well, why were these guns even allowed to be purchased? And it's because of hogs in Texas. They were killing cows. They were tearing up pastures.
Yeah.
That was the whole reason why they started allowing ranchers to get them.
I'm fine with that, you know, and I watch a lot of hog hunting videos online where some cases they're doing it from a helicopter or sometimes they're doing it from all-terrain vehicles. I watch those type of videos, but it's a difference between some farmer that has an infestation of hogs on his farm and somebody who lives in a Manhattan apartment building. You have no need for this in a Manhattan apartment building. You live in a tiny studio apartment. What do you have this for? It's going to go right through the wall and kill your neighbors. So you could have special circumstances where a person, you know, you got a special need to have this firearm, fine. But there are other places where you shouldn't have this. Like I mentioned before, 50 cal, for instance, 50 belt-fed 50 caliber that'll go through the wall of everybody on the floor. Why would you give somebody that? So I think it's a lack of common sense for sure.
Look, I said, we're old school. My husband said the best kind of home defense is going to be your shotgun.
Yeah.
You just point and shoot.
Yeah. I tend to agree that a shotgun is a really good gun for home defense. But I mean, I'm fine if a citizen wants to have a pistol or something like that. I just think that you don't need a 100-round drum for home defense. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, you know, running competition for shooting or whatever, I mean, there's you know, I don't know. It's just such a touchy subject, and it's sad that we only discuss this whenever there is mass shootings.
The left side of the aisle is discussing it all the time. The right is just dismissing it. We bring it up all the time. I mean, because like I said before, we're at like 500 mass shootings for the year. So there's always a mass shooting. It's just they don't make the news all the time. But we've had over 500 of them this year.
Yeah, there's been a lot there, and I agree because that's what I was telling Andy in the chat. I said, if you go to, I think it's www.thetrace.com, it's real time.
Oh, they keep track of them all this happening?
Yes, yeah, it's real time. And I said, and it's because where I'm located, there is a lot of gun violence.
What is the site? What is the site?
The Trace.
TRACE?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious. I've never seen that before. Wow.
Yeah. And it's really because it highlights and it'll tell you exactly if it was like, unalive somebody and then you unalive yourself. It'll tell you if it was a child, if it was a crime, if it was in self-defense, and they really break it down good for you, and it's real time. Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. The only newsroom dedicated to covering gun violence. Wow, yeah, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really nice because you can even put in your local city.
Oh my God. Hey, I don't think using the term is really nice. I get your point, but these are people.
Well,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but wow.
Yeah, look, my son just took a job in New Jersey, and I'm a nervous wreck because it is a high crime area. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking on here. I'm trying to find where it shows the actual shooting. Oh, data. I see that. Yeah, there's quite a bit on here. Okay, I will be looking at this site. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot. It's a lot of information. A lot.
Yeah, I see one of them is saying our handguns or rifles used more often in mass shootings. Ah, yeah, there's a whole bunch of good stuff. And all right, I got to move it on, but thank you. That's
You're welcome, guys. Well, hey, y'all have a blessed one.
you too. I appreciate you coming on. All right, looking in the comments. Yeah, it's called www The Trace, TheTrace, like tracing something, tracing when you're coloring or whatever. The Trace. And apparently is it a .com or a .org? Because I typed in .com, but it looks like it's in the browser as a .org. So, orgs are non-profit sites. So it looks like it came up as a .org. So it might be the trace.org as opposed to .com. But I'd invite you to look at it. It's definitely something that I'm sure folks on the right are going to be saying everything on it is wrong, but I think it's worth looking at. Looking in the comments, I found it is .org. Okay, all right. It's a orgs are basically not-for-profit sites, and something like this. Yeah, you don't want somebody profiting off of this. Gun violence isn't just a city problem. Between 2011 and 2021, the overall firearm death in rural counties was nearly 40% higher than in urban county parts. Oh, I can see a bunch of shows coming from this shit. All right, looking in the comments. Thank you for that, techie girl. Thank you. Going back to the comment section, Woods Custom Metal. You see the comment on the screen behind yours truly. An armed America, less crime. What say you, Woods? Good evening. Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 65,000. Boo! True Aries. Thank you. So what do you think? You think if everyone in this country was armed, do you believe the crime rate would go down if everybody had a firearm?
Well, it had to be in certain contexts.
Explain.
If it was a nuclear family, I think everything would be okay.
But is the crime rate going down because you got a gun or because because you got the nuclear family?
Well, let me just, I bought a rifle since I was like 5. Obviously, started off like a little Red Ryder BB gun.
Okay.
Dad takes you out with a 410. I've been hunting, I don't know, ever since I was a itty bitty kid. When I got my hunter safety course way young. I think it's just something that starts at a young age. Mainly probably when you live in a rural America.
Yeah, but you got some pretty young kids that are taking firearms to school and either killing each other or intending to do so. This stuff is happening as young as first grade.
Yeah, that definitely falls on parents. That shouldn't be happening at all. You need to be locking them away in a safe, and if you have them on a nightstand, it should be hidden. Your kids should not have a clue where they're at.
Yeah, but you
I personally carry one on me. I have one in my truck. Everywhere I go, I have multiple guns in the safe. It's just about being smart, like you said, common sense.
But let me ask you this: do you believe gun safety should be taught to minors, children at a young age? Do you think they should be exposed to guns even if the parent is around?
I guess that's one of the things I was kind of getting into. It's just like, like I said, at a young age, the father, he was always there with me.
Right.
He was teaching me everything that I needed to know as far as safety, to point the gun down or point the gun away from people, hey, this is going to hurt people if, you're aiming it at people. You just don't do that.
Right.
And you don't touch them unless I'm around or, we're doing an activity. It's just one of those things, I think, that, like I said, even with the nuclear family, the father, I think, needs to be there in the home all the time. And, don't get me wrong, I know that there's bad families too, obviously, but I think that's a very essential part of a young man's life, or even a woman, if they want to own a gun. Because I know obviously, rural America, there's women that hunt all the time too. So
Yeah. So let me present it to you this way. In America, gun ownership has consistently went up. We've had a repeal of the. I don't know. You got some kind of echo in the background, man. You got something on. I'm hearing. You got a real bad echo.
I'm in a room just by myself.
Okay, I don't know why something's really squeaky on you, but I'll see if I can work through it. In America, gun ownership has went up. You had the assault rifles ban and repealed, so you can now get assault rifles and all sorts of shit. And the crime rate is going up. So why do you think that is? The amount of shootings are going up with gun ownership.
Well, like I said, society is not the greatest right now at all. We could say that it has a lot to do with mental illness. Everybody used to go to welfare. Used to be the church. And obviously, inner cities in general, you can just see the difference in people. Like
You think putting God back in families would make things better?
I don't think it would hurt it.
I don't know. Religion is pretty judgmental.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on. Don't get me wrong. It ain't like I go to church every Sunday, but I'm pretty spiritual. But that's another topic. I've read my Bible plenty. I would say that most religious people are pretty judgmental.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they go to church is because they need Jesus. So
I don't disagree with that, but I grew up religious myself, and I know, for instance, the LGBT community is damn near hated by most religious organizations.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense because you hate the sin, not the sinner.
No. I'm just saying, your kids are hanging out with other kids that are going to hell. That's going to really make people hate that community.
I don't think that. Choices. Everybody has choices.
Well, when you say choices, the LGBT community, for instance, states that they're born that way. Are you suggesting that's not true?
Well, I guess I can look back on my childhood. I can name about 2 or 3 people I went to school with. We were for sure that's what was going to happen. So I could see that.
Yeah. So if you're born gay, then it's not a choice.
Well, it's all about temptations. Obviously when you're growing up, you want to look at a woman and you're like, oh man, she's beautiful. You instantly get the urge of like, God, you could rape her, but you don't.
I didn't think you were going to go that far.
I'm just saying, it's one of those things. So you just don't do it.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that if you believe that your comment threw me way off with that, but well, give me a second.
Sorry, I go to 100 real fast.
Yeah, you sure do. Wow. Okay. Got me. Yeah, you got me too. No, but I don't know what I'm saying, but you really fucked me up with that. And I guess what I'm saying is that everybody is exposed to something or the other, but I do believe that you can be born that way. But if you're born gay, for instance, as opposed to saying a gay person is committing a sin, in reality, the blame would go on the creator for creating that person that way, right?
I mean, that's a hard one because everybody wants sugar, but is sugar good for you? I mean, the creator created that, right? I mean, there's a million ways, perspectives to look at it.
Well,
alcohol, but are you supposed to drink alcohol?
Yeah, I mean, but if you're born, just imagine if you're born gay, but your family and your religion is teaching you that you're supposed to be straight. That would almost be like, let's say you lived in a society where gay is the norm.
Trust me, I understand what you're getting at, and it's tough.
It ain't just tough. It's enough to make you kill yourself. Here's what I'm saying. Let's say you're born heterosexual, because I'm gonna say it in a way you can relate to it. Let's say as a heterosexual man, like you're heterosexual just like I am. Let's say you're born heterosexual, but the norm in society is actually to be gay. So to appease your pastor and appease your family, you have to start sleeping with other men because that makes everybody happy. You don't want everybody to know you're heterosexual. So now you got dudes that you're letting climb on top of you. It's like, can you imagine how horrible your life would be?
It'd be pretty rough.
Yeah, it would be suicidal.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with. You better be one with Jesus, and you talk to him. That's all I got to say.
Well, but even if you talk to Jesus, because society is so hard on you, Jesus ain't gonna do nothing to help you there. I mean, society is pretty. I mean, fortunately, we've evolved a little bit in 2023. But if you were born in 1960 or 1970, society was really horrible on you if you were a member of the LGBT community, even if you were talking to Jesus. So you have to date people that you are totally unattractive to, because that's what society wants. I mean, there's a lot of gay people that went on to have kids and everything, and they knew they weren't into that type of a person.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
That's awful.
It is. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, honestly. That's a tough one.
You religious?
Like I said, obviously I was born in a small town. There's like 12 churches and like a 1,500 community. So, I mean, yes, I've been to church a lot. But
The reason why I asked you, are you religious? Because that's your answer. That's what's causing this, is religion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, religion is bad. Like I said, I'm more spiritual than I am religious, so I can see, just like, World War II, how Hitler, he pushed this whole, all that stuff. I can see where it could all be bad. The Crusades.
Yeah, if you're making people, to some degree, almost forcing them, because religion teaches you that if you don't do what's in the Bible, you're going to live basically in fire for all of eternity. So you're forcing people, you're actually threatening people. That's how religion tends to work. Either you do this or you're going to face all types of violence, violent punishment, burning in hell or something like that. So you're literally forcing people to do things they really don't want to do, and in some cases making their lives miserable through threat of force.
Well, like I said, you best be one with Jesus, because at the end of the day, that's who you got to know.
I mean, if I got to sleep with another dude, I don't think I want to be one with Jesus. If he's forcing me to do that, I don't know if I want to talk to him.
He's not forcing you to do anything. Like I said, you have the choice.
If he is telling everybody else in my society to ostracize me for what I'm doing, and they're all doing it to me, inciting that Jesus said that what you're doing is wrong, I don't know if I want to be one with him, because he is the reason these people are acting like this.
Technically, they don't have to. I mean, like I said, I don't think it says anywhere in the Bible that they absolutely have to follow him.
If you don't follow Jesus, can you go to the kingdom? Can you make it into heaven if you don't follow?
The only true thing that you have to do is believe in him.
Okay. You can believe in him but not follow anything in the book, and you'll still make it to heaven.
Well, I am only interpreting my way, my only way of telling y'all how I feel.
Okay, fair.
It's my opinion.
Okay, so you can commit every sin in the book and not even think twice about it. As long as you believe him, I don't get it. I mean, why would you even believe him if you're not going to do anything he say?
I think the thought process is, if you believe in him, you have a Holy Spirit inside you, which he resides in you. So you don't even want to attempt those temptations, if that makes any sense.
Right. But if I am born gay and I'm trying to do what you just said, my life is miserable. I am torn because I'm trying to, in defense of my faith, I'm trying to be something that I'm not.
like I said, the only thing I could say is we're all put it with temptation, and I mean, at the end of the day, that sexual desire is a temptation. We all have to stop it. I mean, like,
That's got to be awful. That's got to be
I mean,
awful.
when I didn't have sex till I got married, so I mean, it's just one of those things. I've only been with one woman my whole life. So
I mean, but like I said, if you are attracted to women, and your society suggests that the normal thing is to be attracted to men, so to make sure you're right with society and right in spirituality, you're dating men when you don't like men. That's got to be horrible. I mean, because that is what's happening. Gay people for most of America's history were involved in heterosexual relationships because society was telling them that the same-sex relationship they wanted to be in was wrong. So they're out with the people that they have no attraction to. That's got to be horrible.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it has to be. I mean, like I said, I don't have an answer for any of it. And I'm glad I'm not in that position.
Yeah, I could understand why somebody would off themselves in a heavily religious society under those rules. I mean, it's awful. But I got to move it on, Woods. You know what I do. Appreciate it.
I'll watch you every chance I get.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the support, man. Come on back anytime.
Yep, take her easy.
All right, you too. Looking in the comments real quick, I still think people need a higher power. If you ever go to battle, you have to have some type of faith. I don't think people, quote unquote, need a higher power. I tend to believe in something. I don't know what the hell it is. I grew up Baptist, grew up in the church, started asking a hell of a lot of questions as I became an adult. None of it makes sense. So I'm not as religious as I used to be. But in regards to a person needing to have a higher power, in my opinion, it's like a child needing a security blanket. We know the blanket doesn't protect the kid. You put a kid in a room by himself all alone, he's scared in the dark, and he thinks hiding under the blanket protects him. Obviously, anybody coming in the room can see a body laying in the bed and do whatever the hell they want. It doesn't protect the kid at all, but it feels that way. And I honestly think that religion, to some degree, is like that. That we want to feel that the last decision does not lie with us. There's all, just like when you're a kid, you don't have to worry about anything because your parents got your back. As an adult, all that shit's on you. So it feels good to be able to say somebody else above me is responsible for what's going on. I lost my job. I'm hooked on drugs or whatever. I can pray that somebody will fix my fuck ups. I do believe religion is somewhat like a security blanket. It feels better knowing somebody else during times of need, times of disaster is in control of the wheel. Because I'm not doing a good job right now. So it's nice to think I can go ask somebody else, even if nobody's there. Because in my opinion, you shouldn't be in this problem. If God was looking out for you, he shouldn't have let you fuck up to begin with. He should have stopped it from the beginning. So I have to ask that question sometimes. Can prayer change something that it couldn't prevent from happening? I mean, if I can pray that a terminal disease goes into remission, why couldn't that have stopped it from developing to begin with? Can prayer overturn something that it can prevent from happening to begin with? I don't know. I have to ask that. And I'll look in the comments also in regards to what Shaya says, God gives free will. Why would he do that? I don't get it, because if I'm creating, if I'm the creator, almighty, all-knowing, and I'm creating earth, mankind, and I want people to follow my teachings, I want people to be saved and come to the kingdom of heaven, why would I create a planet full of sinners? Talk about taking a long shot to get what I want. I mean, why would you just create them all perfect? I got an opportunity to create perfect people, but instead I'm gonna deliberately choose to create a whole planet full of sinners. when the end goal is to have them all come to the kingdom of heaven at the end, knowing that if they sin and not confess to me, they're going to hell. Why would you deliberately create so many flaws? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Just to say you gave them free will. Why would you do it? Not to mention, while we have free will is not just free will to fuck up your life. You could take out babies, animals, other innocent parties that have nothing to do with your free will. The guy in Maine is a perfect example. Took the life of a 14-year-old. Free will. Why would you create that? Why would you create something like that? This is what I'm saying when I started saying as I got older, I started asking questions. Why would a God create that? Why would you give a bad person free will to harm kids? Just doesn't make any sense to me. It certainly, at the very least, is worth questioning. It's worth questioning. I'm fine with the free will, but free will should be only to you. We have free will to harm everybody on the planet. I mean, you got America, friends. We know we have, what, a couple thousand nuclear devices? He's given us free will to destroy his entire creation. If God created the heaven and the earth, he's given mankind free will to destroy his entire creation. Why would you do that? That makes no sense at all. Looking in the comments real quick, and I appreciate you folks saying, great point. That's evil. Yeah, it's evil. And it's not only is it evil, it's predictable. If you look at Earth like a creation, like engineering, okay, you do an architectural structure or whatever. You take an architect and he gives you the plans or the blueprints to create something. You create it and the inspectors go out and look at it and they can notice the beams are off, the supports are not right. You can look at this structure and tell this is going to collapse. This is a very bad design. Earth is that way. You create a whole bunch of sinners and put them all on the same planet together and give them free will. It's like looking at a poor architectural structure. You can look at God's creation and say, this isn't going to work. A whole bunch of these people are not going to follow your teachings. They're going to go to hell. They're going to be harming other people. They're going to be destroying the environment. You've given them greed as one of their tenets, so they're greedy, so they're killing off animals and destroying the planet. This is a bad design. Is it wrong to say that to the deity? I mean, but if you just simply look at what we've got, and if you believe God, you created a failure. So much so that even folks who are religious believe that, well, once it was by flooding, the next time it's going to be by fire. He's gotten so good at creating failed projects that he has to come back and destroy it all and start all over again. Why do that? Why not just get it right? You're all powerful, all knowing, but you keep creating flawed projects to the point where you have to come back and destroy everything to start all over again. That don't sound right. That doesn't sound right. You had to do it the first time with flooding or whatever. You hear the story about the ark and all. Why are you deliberately creating rough drafts that are so bad? You got to tear them all up. And there's a very funny comment. Angel Fan Gaming says, build back better. God's supposed to be perfect. There's not supposed to be a better. He's supposed to be perfect. Why are you deliberately creating flawed designs? Like I said, I used to be very religious, but stuff like that has led me to really question it. I mean, and then there's a host of other things. You start watching, what is the black guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson? You start listening to that guy and it really starts, oh, what the hell? Because he comes at it from a scientific aspect. Obviously, the Bible and religion is based solely on faith. And you have to have faith that things that make no sense are going to happen. Person turning into a pile of salt, talking snakes and animals, pulling one rib out of a guy and making a whole female out of that. Hell, I wish I could do that. I would donate a rib if I could make a perfect woman out of it. Shout out to my baby mama. So it doesn't make any sense. And the more educated you become, you're left with nothing but questions like, How could you do this? There's no way this can happen. Even when you look at science, nothing burns forever. Everything that burns needs fuel. So how does heaven, or hell rather, how does hell have eternal flame? What's burning? What's burning that is going to burn forever? Hell, even the sun is predicted to die out. It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying. Look at it in the comments. I've enjoyed this. Nice not to see hate here. Shannon Metzger, I do appreciate that. Anyhow, folks, it is wee hours time. Do appreciate you folks that are tuned in always. You know what I always say. The program is forever will remain MAGA friendly. MAGA is always my preferred guest. Civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle. We don't block, ban, or censor. It's how we do it on every broadcast. If you enjoy that, follow the program. Actually going to be on tomorrow. So I do appreciate you folks tuning in. For now, have a good night. Few of you folks stayed on YouTube. I'm surprised. I do appreciate that. I just ran to run in and see. We ended up being on for quite a while. Just got to rambling on with some really interesting guests. Dak in the comments also. Sylvie's probably gone by now, but I do appreciate you folks that hung out with your boy on YouTube. Nevertheless, it is bedtime. I'll catch you guys on